Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. God Level Majin Buu. Chapter 21. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149. Dugayan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. Before you know it, 2 months have passed. In the station of the Uchiha clan, Itachi wanted to go out to practice again, but was stopped. Itachi, listen to your school teacher, you have been taking leave recently, and you have not even taken the usual test. The leader of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fukucho, frowned. Yes, my lord, the knowledge taught in school is no longer enough to improve my strength. Itachi turned and replied. Originally, with your talent, you were qualified to apply for early graduation, but now that 2 months have been wasted, I think you should cancel the application for early graduation. Fukucho thought that Itachi was talking big, pondered for a while, and decided to let Itachi give up graduating early. If you fail the exam, it will damage the face of the Uchiha family. And it just so happened to take this opportunity to put the weasel's mentality right. Father, I have been cultivating for the past 2 months, and with my strength, it is no problem to take the lower ninja exam. Itachi replied affirmatively, with an indifferent look, as if he did not take the shinobi exam seriously. The Uchiha family has always been arrogant, and this pride comes from the confidence of strength. Feeling Itachi's confidence, although his meaning was denied, Fukucho was not angry, but somewhat appreciated, so he said in a gentle tone, in that case, then you can talk to Ryosuke. After all, he is a middle patience, so as long as you can hold out in his hands for half an hour, then I won't worry about your future cultivation. Quote. Yes, clan elders. Quote. A ninja who was about 17 or 8 years old stood up in response. Yes, father. The weasel also agreed, and after speaking, he walked directly to the training ground in the clan. I heard that the geniuses of the Uchiha clan want to fight against Naka shinobi. Many Uchiha people who were not on mission or were idle rushed to watch the battle. It didn't take much time, and more than 100 people had already gathered. Young Master Itachi, although you haven't graduated yet, I won't show mercy to my subordinates. Ryosuke Nakato, who was fighting against Itachi, reminded him contemptuously. I know, start quickly, otherwise it's hard to explain to the teacher. Itachi replied lightly, as if he didn't care about Ryosuke's identity at all, but was more worried about being late. Teacher, Fukucho grasped the point, could it be that the ferret was still taught outside? HMPH. Ryosuke didn't care so much, he only knew that he was looked down upon by a little devil who had not yet graduated from ninja school. Although Itachi is the identity of the young patriarch, he is still very unhappy. With a cold snort, Ryosuke decided to teach Itachi a lesson, and 5 shurikens were thrown out instantly. Whoosh, su, 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 quote. Although the 5 shurikens sealed all directions of the top, center, bottom, left and right, the Itachi still did not take a step back. Just body. With a slight swing of his body, he easily dodged all the shuriken attacks. Too slow. Itachi opened his mouth and said that compared to these 2 months of training, the attacks of these 5 shurikens were like children's homes. In 2 months, the ferret has become proficient in using the domineering color of sight, as well as the domineering of armed color. As for the overlord domineering, he can also reluctantly use it, but there is no distinction between friend and foe. Seeing that Itachi easily dodged his shuriken, Ryosuke was also a little surprised and prepared to fight with ninjutsu. However, a shuriken thrown by Itachi forced him to give up using ninjutsu. Can't dodge. At first, Ryosuke wanted to dodge directly, but he suddenly found that no matter which direction he dodged, this shuriken would hit him. In desperation, he could only give up using ninjutsu attacks and use a substitute technique instead. Pong! The shuriken instantly shot into the stake, but did not stop, but penetrated the stake and plunged deeply into the stone wall behind. Mastered the change in the nature of chakra. No, even if you master the change in the nature of chakra, it is impossible to insert it so deep into the stone wall. Quote. When Fukucho saw this scene, he looked at Itachi in surprise. Ryosuke, on the other hand, appears from behind Itachi after using a stand-in. How could he let go of such a great opportunity? In the next second, Ryosuke's fist was aimed at the back of Itachi's head and whistled away. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Peerless Genius System. Chapter 660 Flying. However, Ryosuke's sneak-style attack did not work. The back of the weasel's head seemed to have eyes, and without even turning its head, it dodged this punch. Ryosuke did not die, and threw more than a dozen punches in a row. But he was still dodged by the weasel, and still did not look back. How is that possible? I can't do this kind of thing. Quote. One of the onlookers of the Uchiha family exclaimed in disbelief. Itachi, Ryosuke's attack can be predicted by feeling. Quote. Although it is unbelievable, Fukucho has observed for a long time and can only come to this conclusion. Prejudging by feelings. Hearing Fukucho's words, many people gradually discovered that every time Ryosuke launched an attack, Itachi was already ready to dodge. Although opening the Sharingan can also predict the enemy's next move, it also requires the enemy to be in his line of sight. However, the weasel feels more like using white eyes. No, not just white eyes, but 360-degree chakra eyes. Prejudgment. When Ryosuke heard Fukucho's words, he instantly jumped back and distanced himself from Itachi. It's time for the battle to end. Itachi felt the attack behind him stop, turned around and said lightly. Abominable. Even if you can predict it, then you take my trick, the fire escape phoenix flower technique. Quote. After Ryosuke finished the seal, chakra condensed into a large number of fireballs, forming a fire net, and surrounded the weasel in all directions. The ferret is not dodging yet. What is he doing? It's useless. Even if young Master Itachi can predict it, he has nowhere to hide in the face of this fire net. If this blow hits, I'm afraid it will take a long time to raise. The crowd of onlookers analyzed that no matter what they thought, it was impossible for Itachi to avoid this ninjutsu. Itachi, what are you going to do this time? Fukucho originally wanted to stop this battle, but seeing that Itachi still had an indifferent expression, he still resisted the idea of stopping it. Armed color, winding, hardening. Just when Ryosuke thought the attack worked, the sound coming from the fire net caused a strong uneasiness in his heart. Sure enough, in the next second, the figure of the weasel broke out from the fire net, and although the whole body turned black including its clothes, it was not stained with a little Mars. What the hell is this ninjutsu? Not only everyone present, but even Fukucho had never seen it, and he who had opened his chakra eyes still did not see any chakra flowing in the weasel. You lose. Itachi's fingers were on Ryosuke's head, and the black all over his body slowly faded, leaving only his fingers still retaining the armed color domineering. I admit defeat. Liangji tremor. Shaking his voice. He didn't know why. Obviously it was just a finger, but it was more terrifying than a knife in front of his forehead. Itachi doesn't even have a shinobi, right? Hey, just kidding. Defeated Naka Shinobu before graduating. Quote. And it's over in less than 5 minutes, which can't be described as genius. Everyone present watched this scene in a daze, unable to believe that a child who had not graduated from a ninja school had actually defeated a middle ninja. And depending on the situation, the ferret is obviously not using its full strength. Itachi, according to what I said before, in the future, your cultivation will all be arranged by yourself, and I will no longer interfere. Fukucho stood up, took the lead and applauded, and then asked with some curiosity, but I want to know, it's only been 2 months, how did you grow so fast? Quote. This time, not only Fukucho, but even everyone present looked at the weasel curiously. For 2 months, I was tied up with a balloon by my teacher and flew high into the air, jumped from the valley of the end, and was thrown into a forest full of beasts when chakra was exhausted. It can be said that countless times a day, they are facing the crisis of death. Where is this cultivation? It's simply playing with life. What teacher would be so perverted? Let your students die. Quote. This kind of person doesn't deserve to be called a teacher. Before the weasel could finish speaking, the people below began to whisper. Shut up. Do not denigrate the teacher. Quote. The weasel suddenly shouted, and the overlord-colored domineering erupted uncontrollably, which instantly affected everyone present. All sounds disappeared, and the air suddenly fell silent. Boom. How do I? A second later, the ordinary people of the Uchiha clan fainted one after another. Some of the shinobi looked at the weasel, as if facing a tailed beast, slumped on the ground, unable to exert strength at all. Even Naka Shinobu felt a heart palpitation and was very uncomfortable. It was better to be Shinobu, not significantly affected, but still shocked by Itachi's momentum. Is this momentum really emitted by a weasel? He was less than 7 years old. Fakcho was startled and looked at Itachi in surprise. Itachi, you seem, there's an amazing teacher. Quote, Naruto God level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast conquers Xiao Wu as a rabbit maid. Chapter 149 Duguyan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. I don't get tired of suffering a lot, this is the way of Shira, if I die, it can only mean that I am just a man of this level. Itachi saw that the surroundings were quiet, and he said very seriously about the chicken soup for the soul that Juquan usually instilled in him. Itachi, it seems that you have found your own path. As a father, your growth makes me very gratified, really worthy of being my son. Fakcho was very happy when he heard Itachi's words, and laughed heartily while sticking gold on his face. Then my lord, I went to cultivate. Boom, boom, boom. Quote. Early in the morning, shortly after Juquan fell asleep, he was made by a knock on the door. You don't have to think about it, it must be this guy Weasel. Good morning, teacher. Sure enough, Juquan opened the door unpleasantly and saw the weasel standing respectfully at the door. Itachi, as a strong person, you must rest more, if you don't even get enough sleep, you can't be strong. Juquan casually flickered, but still resigned himself to take the weasel to the death forest and began a new day of cultivation. Your task today is to cover your eyes and avoid the stones I threw. Juquan explained, thinking of being woken up in the morning, then sneered, and continued. You can also turn on the armed color domineering, but believe me, it will still hurt if you are hit, severe pain. Quote. I know, teacher, Itachi said with a serious look. Without saying much, Juquan smashed a boulder into rubble with one punch. Because he was afraid of accidentally killing the weasel by using armed color domineering, Juquan only used simple strength. Despite being so careful, it still alarmed others. After Juquan threw a stone and destroyed 10 large trees, a green figure rushed over. The signature thick eyebrows, and shining white teeth. Looking at the boy in green tights in front of him, isn't this a Kai? Ha, sensing someone coming, the ferret also took off the blindfold. Are you also practicing cultivation? It can actually cause such a big movement. Quote. Akabe gave a thumbs up and said with white teeth. Quote, quote. Looking at such a strange animal, the ferret didn't know how to answer, so he could only choose silence. Instead, Juquan showed a big smile. To say what the famed skill of the Kai Emperor is, there is no need to say more, it is naturally the 8-gate Dunja. 8 doors Dunjia. This kind of can transcend the body. What is several times the body limit, it can be said that in addition to the disadvantage of consuming vitality, it is a very good means to improve strength. As for the vitality, the last thing that Juquan lacks is this kind of thing. Why don't you talk? Seeing that the two had not spoken, Akai scratched his head and asked. We are practicing physical arts, and we are worried that we don't have a good opponent, do you want to try it? Juquan said with a smile. Oh, are you going to fight me? Quote. When Akai heard this, the fighting intent in his eyes became stronger and stronger, and the people who could cause such a big movement were not idle people. Not with me, but with him. Juquan shook his hand and pointed at the weasel and said. Him. Akai looked at the 6-year-old ferret and immediately shook his head. Don't joke, he is so young, how can he be my opponent? Quote. Oh, so how about we make a bet? Quote. The old god of Juquan said in the presence, seeing that the prey had been hooked, he was not in a hurry. Bet on what? Akai asked curiously. If you guessed correctly, your father should be Mad Dai. In fact, I have always agreed with his physical skills, but unfortunately he died young. If I can, I want to learn his 8 Dunjia techniques. Juquan first praised Akai's father, and then showed his minions without a trace. It's great that my father is still recognized after all. If you win, I can hand you the 8 doors of Dunja technique. Quote. Sure enough, hearing that his father was praised, Akai was shocked, and although he was in tears, he happily agreed. Mater Dai has practiced hard for 20 years, but his identity is still under patience, also known as 10,000 years of patience. It can be said that during this period, their father and son no longer know how many white eyes they have suffered. Although in the end, in order to protect Akai and a few others, Mater Dai broke out 8 doors of Dunja to single out the 7 people of the Ninja Dao. And at the cost of their lives, they directly killed 4 of them. But the matter was classified as confidential, not allowed to be passed on, and few people knew about it. Outsiders will still think that Mater Dai is just a 10,000-year-old forbearance, even if the name is engraved with a memorial monument, it is not remembered. So now to hear that someone identifies with his father and remembers him, Akai is really happy. This result was not unexpected by Juquan, and Akai would really agree, so he added, "If I lose, I will cover all your meal expenses for the next year, of course, if you don't use Baman Dunja." Quote. Is it really a year's meal fee? Did I hear you right? Quote. Akai wiped away his tears and asked in disbelief. Cultivating physical arts requires replenishing a lot of energy, which can only be obtained from meat. And meat is very expensive, and the monthly food fee accounts for almost all the task remuneration. So although he is already in the middle, he is still very tight. That's 1,000,000 taels, enough for you to buy meat for a year. Juquan didn't say a word, and directly shot out the money. Okay, just do as you say. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149. Dugayan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. But then again, did you really decide to let me fight this kid? Don't you fight personally? Quote. Facing the ferret, Akai asked again. I want to fight with the teacher, win over what I am saying. Saying that, the ferret took a step forward, his expression very determined. Start lightly. Seeing that the two were ready to fight, Juquan inexplicably instructed. Don't worry, I'll shoot lighter. Akai gestured and gave a thumbs up in response. Juquan's words were originally meant to be heard by Itachi, obviously Akai misunderstood, but he didn't bother to explain anything, and waved his hand down, start. Quote. Power Prelude. Akai immediately entered the battle state and launched a flying kick from the front. See, hear, see, perceive. Itachi knew that with his own strength, he would definitely not be able to resist Kai, who had been practicing physical arts for a long time, so he no longer hesitated and saw that the domineering spirit instantly unfolded. Swoosh! A sound of breaking air crossed. Didn't kick. Akai was a little surprised. With his speed, how could he be dodged by a child? But looking at the child in front of him with an indifferent face, it is not like Mang. Unconsciously, Akai's expression also gradually became serious from not caring at the beginning. One blow can dodge, but what about continuum? Konoha Whirlwind. Konoha Great Whirlwind. Konoha Rigid Whirlwind. Just do it when you think of it. Akai rushes towards the weasel like a cannonball, and the continuous technique of combining the upper kick and the lower kick is all used. In the face of the serious Akai, the ferret is more strenuous. Continuous high-speed attacks, even if you see and smell domineering, can be perceived, but the body can't react. Snap. One did not pay attention, the ferret was hit. You're very good, then I'm going to get real. The weasel patted the place where it was hit, and then immediately released the weight. Boom. The weight fell to the ground, kicking up a small cloud of dust. After 2 months of hard training, the weight on the ferret has reached 30 kilograms each, and 4 for a total of 120 kilograms. Still carrying weights. At this time, Akai's expression began to be solemn. Now Akai, although he has not yet worn weight training, but from the dull sound of the ferret landing on the ground, he can also guess the approximate weight. It seems that I really underestimate you. Saying that, Akai attacked again. But lifted the weight-bearing weasel, the body. His body speed is much faster. No matter how dense Akai's attacks are, he can always dodge and even return fire from time to time. It's a pity that Akai is really resistant to beating, and the weasel's attack is not painful for him. For a while, the two actually froze. I didn't expect that I could actually find someone to compete with me in terms of physical skills, and we can be considered a tie. After another exchange, Akai took the opportunity to withdraw some distance and scratch his head. From the current situation, the two are indeed comparable, and Akai does not believe that a child of Itachi's age can do any ninjutsu. Although in fact, it's just that the two are fighting too fast, and the ferret doesn't have time to make a mark. Tied, if only to this extent, then you lose. Quote. Itachi also stopped and replied, he had completely adapted to Akai's combat rhythm. Oh, Akai didn't understand what he meant, and looked at the weasel in bewilderment. Armed color hardening. The extreme black gradually extended over the ferret's hands, and in a short time, his entire arm was covered. Just darkened. Akai thought that the weasel was going to perform some technique, and deliberately waited for a while, but he didn't expect that it was just that his arm turned black. Then you try. This time it was the ferret's turn to take the initiative to attack, and the pitch-black fist roared. Akai still used his straight fist to deal with it as before, but he was instantly shaken away. How is that possible? Rubbing his numb hand, Akai looked at the weasel in disbelief, and the fist just now, he seemed to be smashed on steel. Now is the real beginning. The weasel replied, and once again swung his fist covered in armed color domineering, like Akai slammed over. Bang, 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 quote. This time it was Akai's turn to suffer, and he who promised not to use the 8 doors dunja had no other hole cards to use. However, even if he could use the 8-door dunja, he would not use it. Although it was a shame to lose, it was even more humiliating to be forced out of the 8-door dunjia by a 6-year-old child. Stop, stop, I throw in the towel. Quote. After receiving more than 20 iron fist attacks, Akai saw that he had no hope of winning at all, and simply admitted defeat. No way, not only can't hit the weasel, but also beaten himself. What's more, being hit by that black fist really hurts. Although I lost this time, I will always surpass you in the future, this is youth. Akai said, posing again, maybe it really hurts, anyway, the posture is not similar. According to the agreement, Akai demonstrated the cultivation method of the 8 doors of dunja on one side. In fact, the principle is to stimulate the corresponding chakra meridian system to achieve transcendence. The purpose of the body limit. Under the eyes of Juquan's riding wheel, he almost instantly mastered the 8 gates of dunja. Although he did not have chakra meridians in his body, it did not prevent him from directly stimulating cells in this way, and the effect was the same. Although Akai lost, Juquan still gave him 1 million taels. In Akai's tears, Juquan told the ferret to continue cultivating, but he left in a hurry. Now, Juquan just wanted to try the amplification effect brought by the 8-gate dunja as soon as possible. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149. Dugayan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. As you go all the way out of Konoha, the trees become richer. Before I know it, I've reached the Forest of Death. This is the 44th exercise ground on the outskirts of Konoha in the original book, a huge forest full of poisonous insects and beasts. Glancing at Konoha, who was already far enough away, Juquan sat down on the spot and began to stimulate the cells according to the cultivation method of the 8-gate dunja. Although he does not have chakra meridians, due to the imitation of the cells is unusually strong, making his entire body. The body can perfectly act as the chakra meridian. Therefore, directly stimulating the cells in the corresponding position is equivalent to stimulating the chakra meridians. Well, the first step is to open the door. A large number of chakras began to gather in the head of Juquan, and after a while, as he heard, duh. In his mind, duh. With a sound, the door opening restriction was completely broken, and the energy contained in the cells of the whole body began to become active. Juquan felt the lower body. Changes in the body after lifting the restriction of the brain domain for the body. The control of the body seems to be more comfortable and faster. Good, good, the second step is to close the door. With chakra's impact again, the restrictions representing Hugh Gate were also lifted, and although Juquan's endurance had reached a terrifying stage, he could still feel a lot of increase, and even his spirit became more energetic. Yes, follow this momentum to open the door to continue to give birth. Body. The body cells began to become more active, the strength also increased, and green energy began to emanate around the body. Next, open the door of injury. Chakra is stimulated all the way down, the cells are further enhanced, and the speed and strength are greatly increased. And then Duman. When the Duman opened, the chakra that permeated the 9 springs also showed a trend of eruption, setting off gusts of wind and waves. Then there's Jingmun. When the 6th gate of the 8 gates of Dunja, the Jing gate, opened, Juquan finally felt that some small injuries began to appear in his body. However, it is indeed very insignificant, and if you do not perceive it carefully, I am afraid that you will not notice it at all. Finally at the 7th gate, keep opening. Bang. With a loud bang, the chakra in Juquan's body soared several times again, and the earth began to crack. More chakra slammed into the sky and emitted a strange blue color, shrouding the surroundings in a blue light. In the Naruto office building, at this time, a dark ninja hurried to report, Naruto-sama, the forest of death outside Konoha, a large number of chakras suddenly erupted, and there is a trend of continuous increase. Needless to say, immediately mobilize the members of the Dark Department and come with me to investigate. Just through the window, the water gate can see the blue pillar of light that soars into the sky. The familiar energy contained in the pillar of light, what is not chakra? The dark ninja also felt the change in the light in the room, glanced out the window curiously, and immediately saw the picture that she would never forget in her life, and was surprised. It actually increased again. With such a huge amount of chakra, shouldn't it be a tailed beast raging again? Quote, tailed beast. When Watergate heard the words of the dark part, he couldn't help but think of the figure in the Night of the Nine Tails. Could it be? That's right, no one can make such a big movement except him. However, if it is him, there should be no problem. After some speculation, Watergate was not in a hurry, and slowly said, there is no need to mobilize other dark parts for the time being. I should know that person. You go with me to take a look, just help deal with the aftermath for a while. Quote, hey, what surprised this dark part the most was the word, person, in Watergate. But is such a powerful chakra really something that humans can have? Even the Nine Tails at that time was just that. Let's go and see the situation. Before Watergate could finish speaking, suddenly the entire Konoha village shook violently, interrupting his next words. When I looked out the window again, the chakra pillar had turned red and looked like substance. The entire Konoha was under the light of this chakra, as if dyed with a blood-red color. After this moment, the Watergate didn't even care about the Hokage Dokata, and hurriedly said, go quickly, if you slow down Konoha, you may be demolished. Quote, Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149 Duguyan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. It seems a little overdone this time, but it shouldn't have much impact, right? Quote, Juquan, who had rushed through the door of death, looked at everything he had caused, and muttered to himself while thinking. More than half of the entire death forest was destroyed by the chakra that erupted from the 9 springs, and the trees were completely gone, forming a huge circular crater. This was just the result of the simple chakra emanation when he cultivated the 8 gates of Dunjia. Now Juquan has still been in the state of opening the 8-door Dunjia, and it has not been closed. Because he found that in this state, the energy of the cells in the body is constantly being extracted. Every moment, a large number of cells that have been drained of energy die, and then more and stronger cells are produced, constantly forming a virtuous circle. This is also equivalent to a way of cultivation. Let the body, the physical fitness gradually becomes stronger. It's just a pity that the cultivation effect brought by the weight is better than nothing. The load of 40 tons is far from meeting the needs of Juquan. Recently, I have been a little slack, and I have to become stronger, but unfortunately, with the technology of the Hokage world, I can't create a gravity room. Gravity. Quote. Juquan muttered. Suddenly the spirit moved. Although the Hokage world does not have a gravity room, but there is something that controls gravity, the Eye of Reincarnation. If you want to have the Eye of Reincarnation, you only need to have the cells of the Sharingan Eye and the original Hokage. Now the Sharingan has its own. As for the first cells, there is a Tuanzang. All the dirty things in Konoha, it's right to find the almighty Danzo. Just as Juquan made up his mind to go around Tuanzang again, a strong hunger came from his belly. After the 8 doors of Dunjia were opened, the metabolism increased rapidly, and the accelerated division of cells made my appetite increase. This point Juquan analyzed correctly. Although with his Majin Buu physique, cells can divide indefinitely. But dividing cells also needs to consume energy, especially after opening the 8-door Dunjia. The cells are in a state of division at all times, so more energy is needed. It's too troublesome to go back to cooking. Let's just find a random rotisserie to eat some meat. What about my money? Quote. Juquan took out his pocket, but found that his pocket was cleaner than his face, and then he remembered that his only 1 million taels had been given to Akai as a food fee. At this time, 2 breaths entered the perception of Juquan, one of which he recognized, which was the water gate. The money is coming. Watergate and the dark ninja rushed all the way, and along the way, many frightened beasts were fleeing towards the forest of death. Although these beasts don't matter to some ninjas, there are still a large number of civilians in Konoha. It seems that after understanding the situation, it is necessary to inform the ninja to drive away the beast as soon as possible. Ah! An exclamation from the dark part pulled Watergate back from his thoughts to reality, and he looked up. I'll go. Death Forest, what's wrong with you? How is there only half left? How did that half become a big hole? Looking at the money, no, seeing the Watergate getting closer and closer, Jukwon smiled strongly, and said hello from afar, Watergate. Quote. But the Watergate stood on the edge of the big pit and stopped, and the huge amount of chakra had condensed into substance. Although he didn't want to admit it, even as a Hokage, he couldn't easily get close to Jukwon. Jukwon also noticed this and took the scattered chakra back into his body. Phew, what was the situation just now? There was such a big movement, are there enemies? Quote. The Watergate chief breathed a sigh of relief and jumped in front of Jukwon and asked. It's just cultivation, don't worry. Jukwon replied indifferently. Only, just cultivation. Shuamin was stunned when he heard this, but he thought that Jukwon didn't have to lie to himself, so he smiled bitterly and said, please don't practice such a dangerous cultivation in the future, just for a while, the wood leaves are about to collapse. Quote. Got it, look at your bitter look, what big things can you do with such a little psychological endurance? Jukwon waved his hand. When Uchiha appears in the future, he will destroy several mountains at every turn, and at that time, he will not cry to death. Looking at the appearance of Jukwon, Shuimen knew that his words were ineffective, and sighed plainly. By the way, do you have money? I'm hungry right now and desperately need food, so I'll double back you. Jukwon asked. I don't usually bring money, didn't you open a restaurant? Quote. Watergate asked rhetorically. Since he gave Jukwon 1 million taels before, he had no money on his body. The efficiency of self-cooking is too slow, I urgently need to eat meat now, you don't even bring money with you, it's enough. Jukwon said with a look of hatred that iron is not steel. Haha, this is really. Watergate scratched his head awkwardly, not knowing what to say. That, actually, I have money with me. The dark part, who had been on the side for a long time, interjected weakly. On one side is the Hokage, on the other is the strong person who makes Konoha shake. Originally this level of conversation, she should not speak casually. But watching the air suddenly quiet, she felt compelled to do something. Jukwon only then paid attention to this dark part, the woman's voice, plus a purple hair, this should be Yuxian, right? Naruto God level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast conquers Xiao Wu as a rabbit maid. Chapter 149 Dugayan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. In that case, it's up to you to take 9 springs to dinner, and I'll inform the other ninjas to help disperse the beasts. Seeing that this dark part was solved, Watergate said with the trend. Great honor, the dark part answered. Watergate nodded, apologized to Jukwon, and hurriedly went back to busy. This incident is enough for Watergate to have a headache for a while. In addition to driving the beast back to the Forest of Death, it is also necessary to arrange for the Earth Ninja to repair the ground and replant the trees. Then Lord Jukwon, please come with me. The dark part kept his gaze on Jukwon, and he was also secretly observing this man. The more I looked at it, the more I felt that he looked like the powerful figure of the Knight of the Nine Tails, but his conjecture had yet to be verified. Thank you, what's your name? Jukwon asked. Although the identity of this Yuxian has been basically confirmed, it is embarrassing to directly call out people's names, making it seem like he is secretly concerned about people's privacy, so he still needs to have an introduction. In the lower moon Xian, just call me Xian, Xian introduced herself, and asked back without a trace, what about the clothes that Lord Jukwon wore on the Night of the Nine Tails? Quote. Are you talking about this? As he spoke, the black robe turned from cells immediately covered Jukwon's body. Sure enough, it's you. Speaking of which, you are still my lifesaver. Quote. Shi Yan saw this iconic black robe and knew that her conjecture had been confirmed, and she couldn't help but smile. She will never forget that when the tail of the Nine Tails swept over that night, it was also her most desperate time. It was Jukwon who single-handedly blocked the attack of the Nine Tails. Don't worry too much, it's just a coincidence. Juquan smiled. He really didn't notice the existence of Xian that night. Lord Juquan is right, maybe this is fate. As she spoke, Xian felt that her words were a little too explicit, and lowered her head with a blush. She is glad that she joined the dark part at the moment, because only the dark part usually wears a mask. Otherwise, Lord Juquan would be ashamed to die when he saw him like this. After experiencing Tsunade and Shizune, Koizumi is no longer a little cab. Although I don't know what this strong young lady in the original book is thinking, it is not difficult to see that she is definitely shy. Under the bad taste, Juquan pretended not to know anything, and said casually, "Let's go to eat, it's not convenient for you to wear a mask, let's take it off." Quote. As the saying goes, afraid of what comes, Xian doesn't know that Juquan is intentional. Now her blush can still be covered under the mask, but once the mask is removed, the atmosphere will be very embarrassing. Seeing that Xian didn't speak for a long time, Juquan pretended to be a little angry and said, "If you feel embarrassed, forget it, just because I didn't say anything." Quote. Lord Juquan, please don't misunderstand, I'll pick it. Hearing that Juquan's tone had changed, Xian was afraid that the other party would have some misunderstanding, and hurriedly explained. The white hands gently removed the mask, revealing the delicateness. Shameful face. Sakura's lips coated with light lipstick are like a seduction. People's cherries are picked by others. Hey, why is your face so red? Have a fever? Quote. Look at the petite under the mask. With a shy face, Juquan continued to ask. It's not much, Lord Juquan, let's go quickly. Quote. Xian only felt that blood was rushing to her face, and if she stayed longer, she was afraid that Juquan would see that it was strange, so she lowered her head and ran towards the barbecue restaurant. At the same time, in a certain cave, 3 or 2 faint candles reflected here, adding a hint of aura out of thin air. It is a secret base of the Xiao organization. Xiaonan, I definitely brought a very useful news just now. Pain, who stood at the top, said solemnly. What makes you all pay so much attention? Xiaonan, who wore paper flowers on her head, asked. She was also curious about what could make Pain, who had the eye of reincarnation, pay so much attention. Someone in Konoha village released more chakra than the 9 tails, and according to speculation, the 9 tails were sealed, which is also related to this person. Pain said solemnly. Oh, chakra is more than the 9 tails. Quote. After hearing the reason, Xiaonan's eyes narrowed, and he felt surprised. As a human, how can there be more chakra than a tailed beast? Even though she has walked the ninja world over the years, she has seen all kinds of ninjas. But chakra was more human than the tailed beast, and she had heard about it for the first time. Now that the organization has few people, I still have important matters to deal with during this time, so this matter will be left to you. Pain explained. What do you need me to do? Xiaonan asked. Pain thought for a while and said, get close to him, get the secret of his chakra, and then absorb it into the organization. If it doesn't work, poison or sneak attack, in short, find an opportunity to kill him. Quote. Got it, Xiaonan answered, and his figure turned into a cloud of paper and disappeared into the cave. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149 Duguyan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. Half an hour later, Konoha's most famous yakiniku restaurant, Yakiniku Q. Due to the vibration that Konoha had just generated, all the diners in the store except the owner ran out. After waiting for a while, there were no customers coming to the door, and just as the boss was about to close the door, a man and a woman walked into the store. This guest, what do you need? Seeing that someone had finally arrived, the boss immediately got up and asked. Grilled meat, first get one of each, the sooner the better. It was Juquan who spoke, and the hunger coming from his belly made him feel that his cells were a little dull. However, considering that it was Xian to invite guests, he didn't ask for much, and only planned to pad his stomach first. I have to say that the speed of the barbecue queue is very fast, and after a while, the plate of roasted meat was served by the boss, and the aroma instantly permeated the small private room, which made people can't help but be moved. The meat is roasted on the outside and tender on the inside, and the slight fat seeps out, like a wonderful gastronomic work of art. However, Juquan no longer had time to admire, so he picked up a plate and began to eat it to replenish energy for his cells as soon as possible. When Juquan finished eating the 10th plate of roasted meat, Xian had just picked up a piece of meat and sucked the gravy on it. It's not that Juquan eats too fast, but Xian eats too slowly, and she watched Juquan eat almost the whole time. As the roast unappetizing, Juquan noticed her situation and put down his chopsticks and asked, it's not very tasty. Quote, Xian came back to his senses and said with a look of admiration, as if he was eating not barbecued meat, but the best delicacy in the world. That's right, this hand-torn chop is very delicious, try it quickly. Involuntarily, Juquan tore off a small piece of roasted golden steak meat and handed it to the red side of Xian. Is Lord Juquan going to feed me personally? Oh my god, this is supposed to be something that couples can do, right? You Xian, what are you thinking? Lord Juquan is just considerate, quickly take the meat, don't let the family wait all the time. But if you eat it directly, will it be too unreserved? But if you take it by hand, will it seem too cold? Xian's automatic brain made up countless pictures, but still didn't know what to do, resulting in a brain crash. Whoosh! Juquan saw that Xian had been blushing, and there was no response, so he directly sent the small steak of meat into Xian's small face. In the mouth. Inadvertently, even my fingers went in some. But I didn't expect that when I withdrew my hand again, I actually pulled out a crystal silver water line. I'm so sorry. When Xian reacted, seeing this made her ashamed. Ashamed, he quickly picked up a tissue and cleaned it for Juquan. It doesn't matter, you're cute. Juquan praised, saying that he didn't care. Please don't say that, Lord Juquan, obviously I invited you to dinner, and I actually made such a rude reaction. Xian lowered her head, secretly hating her indisputability. It doesn't matter, this is a private room, no one else sees it. Juquan whispered, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. I have to say that occasionally teasing the little sister paper and watching her make shame. The astringent reaction is still very interesting. That, Lord Juquan is so strong, I don't know which department you belong to. Ninja, dark parts, quote. Xian's mind turned, embarrassed to continue on this issue, and forcefully changed the topic. The so-called seeing through does not say thoroughly. Juquan also knows what Xian means, but still replied seriously, what ninja, these organizations in the dark department, I don't have time to participate, after all, I also have my mission, organization. Quote. Inadvertently, Juquan felt as if he had found a task that might be triggered. As a strong person with an organization of your own, the idea should be feasible. As for the candidates for the organization, Juquan already had the first goal. Orochimaru is very good, a paranoid, big scientist of the Hokage world. As a big boss in the early stage, not only was it not brushed up, but it was still active in the later stage. I just don't know where the big snake pill is, but at present, he and Tuanzou should still have some kind of cooperation. From Tuan Zhang, you should be able to ask. Sure enough, it was really correct that he didn't kill Tuan Zhang casually in the first place, saving a lot of trouble. Thinking of this, Juquan silently applauded himself. Lord Juquan, why don't you eat? Xian saw Juquan's thoughtful expression and asked curiously. Nothing, but thank you so much for helping me light a path. Quote. Returning to the 9 springs of God, he lifted Xian's chin and kissed him with some excitement. Phew, Xian struggled symbolically, but soon sank into it. After all, this is the first time she has been kissed by the opposite gender, and it is also a man she admires, which makes her a little overwhelmed. And her hands and feet lost strength as early as the moment she kissed, let alone resisted. For a long time, lips parted. Juquan stretched out to Xian's ear and said softly, in return, I can promise you a wish, any wish is fine. Quote. Juquan didn't tell a lie at this point, even if he resurrected the dead, he was confident that he could do it. Xian leaned weakly on Juquan's shoulder, breathing delicately. The wind just now made her almost suffocate, and her body. The body suddenly tensed, until it felt as if something was venting out, and the feeling of tension gradually disappeared. After a long time of relief, Xian recovered and muttered intermittently, wishes or something, I don't know. It's okay, you think slowly, just because I have something to do, I'll come back to you when it's done. Juquan looked at Xian's pink earlobes and blew lightly. Well, good, the feeble Xian replied gently. Looking at the beautiful woman in her arms who looked as if she had been satisfied, Jukwon decided to let her go for the time being. Shifting his target to the barbecue, Jukwon ate it in large mouths, and from time to time he would personally feed some to Shi Yan. It's shameful though. Shame, but Shi Yan also had a sweet feeling in her heart, and she accepted this way of eating with a desire to refuse and return. After another 2 hours, after Jukwon sent Xian home, he looked at Hokage Rock and smiled. Tuan Zhang, I'm here again. Boom, boom, boom. At this time, Konoha village welcomed a guest wearing a robe of red clouds on a black background. The purple stockings under the robe loomed, and the slender legs were perfectly curved by high heels. According to the intelligence, is it a man named Jukwon, who does not wear a ninja brace, and is used to wearing a black robe to act. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Peerless Genius System, Chapter 660 Flying. Jukwon came to the base of the root organization again, and was about to stomp his foot to summon Tuan Zhang out. What are you doing again? A familiar voice suddenly sounded behind him, causing Jukwon to put his feet back again. Tuan Zhang's voice was full of anger and helplessness. According to intelligence, the Konoha shaking a few hours ago, and the large number of unknown chakra sources produced by the Forest of Death, seemed to be a good thing done by the guy in front of him. This time, Tuan Zhang had a clearer and more intuitive understanding of Jukwon's strength, knowing that even if he added the combat power of the entire root organization, he couldn't help Jukwon at all. For this kind of powerful enemy who knows many of his secrets, Tuan Zhang expressed helplessness. The corners of Jukwon's mouth curled up, and he said with a smile, "It's good to say, the location of the big snake pill, and the cells of the original Hokage." Quote. Tuan Zhang was suddenly startled and looked at Jukwon in disbelief. Jukwon knew about the Sharingan, and even knew about his cooperation with Orochimaru. But the cells of the original Hokage, Tuan Zhang asked himself, but it did a good job. Because once this matter is known, the Thousand Hands clan will not let him go in the first place. Although the Senju clan has declined, Tsunade is still there after all. Good villains are also strong people at the level of 3 ninjas, not only strong in strength, but also in political influence. Secondly, the original Hokage is a symbol of Konoha. Using the original cells for human experiments, after the group is discovered, it cannot be whitewashed. At that time, let alone compete for the position of Hokage, I am afraid that I will be directly deprived of all rights, and even the root organization will not be able to keep it. After a long time, Tuan Zhang's face became more and more gloomy, and asked, "How do you know?" Quote, "Whoever asks about this dies." Although Jukwon smiled, a huge-tailed beast jade also condensed in his hand, silently threatening Tuan Zhang. Understood, don't ask. Tuan Zhang really deserves to be a hero, and when it is time to instigate, he decisively admits it. Seeing this, Jukwon withdrew the tailed beast jade, thought about it, and said with a smile, "There are some things that you can't know, but there are some things I can tell you, such as the conditions for evolving kaleidoscope chakra eyes." Quote, "A person like Tuan Zhang who mixes everything dirty will be useful sooner or later, so Jukwon doesn't mind giving him a little benefit." Kaleidoscope chakra eyes, Uchiha Spot's eyes. Tuanzo was stunned when he heard this. Uchiha Ba is a character who can compete with the first generation, and his eyes are the highest eyes of the legendary Uchiha clan, kaleidoscope chakra eyes. You seem to have made a mistake. Uchiha Madara has a kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, but not everyone is called Uchiha Madara. Jukwon shook his head. What do you mean? Tuan Zhang asked in confusion. For you ninjas, the kaleidoscope chakra eye is powerful, but it also depends on who is in the hands. Uchiha is very powerful in itself, so you can make full use of the kaleidoscope's ability, but if you are in the hands of a waste. Jukwon explained lightly, looking at Tuan Zhang's eyes like looking at a mental retardation. However, from the reaction of Tuan Zhang, it also fully illustrates the scarcity and preciousness of kaleidoscope riding wheel eyes during this period. Then how do you open the kaleidoscope chakra eye? Tuan Zhang didn't care about Jukwon's gaze and hurriedly asked. It seems that we have reached a deal, so what I want will be brought first. Jukwon stretched out his hand and gestured. Coming. I saw Danzo order, and a ninja took a map and a copy of the primary cells placed in the vessel. Awakening the kaleidoscope is very simple, as long as the mood is extremely sad, such as killing the closest person, there is a high chance that it can be opened. Juquan took something, and he was not afraid that Tuanzang would dare to deceive himself, and explained directly. HMPH, it's really cursed eyes. Tuanzang was secretly cursing such a harsh eye-opening condition, thinking of the pair of chakra eyes that were taken by Juquan last time, and suddenly widened his eyes and said, "So, you already have a kaleidoscope. What do you say?" Juquan lifted the edge of his black robe, revealing the scarlet chakra eyes after disguising. After returning from the regimental cache, Juquan directly absorbed the original cells. After fusion, when he looked in the mirror again, his eyes had become reincarnation eyes. At the same time, Juquan not only felt some of the abilities of the Eye of Reincarnation but even awakened Mu Duan. In the case of not imprinting, it is already possible to control the simple growth of plants, just like the degree of Yamato in the hurricane, but if you want to strengthen it, you must use it with imprinting. It seems that after finding the Great Snake Pill, it is necessary to go to the Thousand Hands clan to learn the original Mudden Ninjutsu, but for now, let's apply gravity to yourself first. Juquan muttered to himself, and at the same time began to perform the new technique brought by the Eye of Reincarnation, Vientian Heavenly Introduction. This is a technique that can specifically change the gravity of an object, and Juquan acts it on the sole of his shoe, so that only he is affected by gravity and will not harm others. As for the strength of gravity, Juquan gradually increased from 100 times and did not stop until it rose to 900 times. It's really much stronger than the load. Now every cell in Juquan's body is under 900 times the gravity. This feeling is incomparable to the weight bearing. Juquan specifically calculated that 90% of his current strength in his body was resisting the pressure brought by gravity. In other words, he can withstand 1,000 times the gravity at most, but to the extent of 1,000 times, he estimates that he will have to breathe for half a day after walking 2 steps, and he will not have the effect of cultivation, so he specifically stays at 900 times gravity. Then next, run to the Big Snake Pill, it should be exercised. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149 Duguyan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. Juquan trotted all the way, and after passing the guards of the empty Konoha gate, he saw a familiar figure. Wearing paper flowers, blue hair, red clouds on a black background. Isn't this Xiao Nan of the Xiao organization? Why did he come to Konoha? Juquan looked at her puzzled, but now he had business to do, so he decided to leave her alone for the time being. The target appears. Xiao Nan saw the obvious black robe symbol, whispered softly, and followed Juquan's footsteps behind. After running for a while, Juquan naturally felt the little tail behind him, and when he looked back, it was empty. See, hear, see, perceive. Opening the domineering appearance, the complete picture of the surrounding terrain was transmitted to Juquan's mind. Only then did he find out that it turned out that Xiao Nan had been following him. Strange, after coming to the Hokage world, it seems that she has not dealt with the Xiao organization. Why did she? Juquan analyzed while running. He didn't think it was a coincidence, let alone because he was too handsome, let the beauty catch up to chase him. Because of this time period, the Xiao organization was not famous, and it was still silently developing its strength in Yu Ninja Village. So Conan's appearance near Konoha and the fact that he has been tracking himself must have a purpose. Juquan thought about it. There were only 2 possibilities, that is, he had already been paid attention to in the Night of the Nine Tails, and he had to absorb himself into the Xiao organization, otherwise he wanted to obtain his powerful secret. Xiao Nan's side was also thinking about how to approach Juquan. Because this man in front of him, just surpassing the chakra of the Nine Tails, is not easy to deal with. Direct conquest by force is easy to lose. But if you get close to him first, gain his trust, and then reveal the secret of his great strength little by little, or let him join the organization. Even if he refuses at that time, he can easily kill this man by poisoning, sneak attack, etc. In a short time, Xiao Nan had planned everything. Yo, I said, you have followed me all the way, what do you want to do? Hearing the sudden sound of Juquan in his ears, Xiao Nan was startled and hurriedly stood still. Her subconscious body. The body tightened, ready to defend, but found that Juquan did not make other moves, so he relaxed slightly, since the night of the nine tails, I have been paying attention to you and admire your strong strength very much. Do you need an assistant? Quote. Oh. When Juquan heard this, he looked a little nervous, but his temperament was still cold. If these words came out of Shi Yan's mouth, he would definitely believe it. But if it was said by a cold beauty like Xiaonan, he would definitely not believe it. But now that you know what the organization wants to do, you might as well play with her. So Juquan pretended to be very normal and asked, Assistant, what will you do? Quote. I'm not weak, I can help you clean up some garbage, or assassinate. Xiaonan saw that Juquan was hooked and tried to prove his worth. It's kind of interesting, you can follow me first, but there is no salary. The corners of Juquan's mouth turned up slightly, and he continued to hurry. Where are we going? Xiaonan flew into the air and asked. Since she followed Juquan this time, she used the dance of paper to transform a pair of wings and flew in the sky, much faster. Find someone named Orochimaru and let him join my organization. Juquan replied with interest, still running unhurriedly, but the speed was faster than Xiaonan's flight. Organization. Xiaonan grasped the point. It seems that this man in front of him also has his own organization. And isn't the big snake pill a newcomer who just joined the Xiao organization not long ago? After seeing Pain's strength, how could the great snake pill join other people's organizations? Xiao Nanyu's analysis became more and more chaotic, and he really couldn't figure out what he was going to do, so he could only look at Juquan with a puzzled face. That's right, I'm going to set up an organization, and although it's just me at the moment, there will soon be two of them. Juquan raised his head and explained, seriously. A person. Hearing that there was only one person in Juquan's organization, Xiaonan obviously felt that a lot of black lines appeared on his forehead, but he still followed his words and asked, what if that person called Orochimaru refuses to join? Quote. Trust me, he will definitely join. Juquan said very confidently, and at the same time increased his speed. After running for so long, can you still accelerate? Xiaonan silently analyzed the strength of Juquan, and at the same time accelerated the flight speed. I don't know why. Hearing Juquan's confident reply, she always felt that Juquan would succeed, even if the big snake pill had already joined Xiao. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149. Duguyan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. Come to the base of the Great Snake Pill marked on the map. On the surface, this is just an ordinary barren mountain, and even plants do not grow. Are you sure it's here? Can't get it wrong, right? Quote. Xiaonan asked, although she didn't know where the base of the Great Snake Pill was, but looking at the situation here, it didn't look like a base. That's right, it's just underground. Under the domineering perception of Juquan, he found that the big snake pill was in the underground base here. But there is no entrance here, how are you going to enter? Before Xiaonan finished speaking, he only heard the sound of pung, and this barren mountain was razed to the ground by a tailed beast jade, and the passage of the base was also exposed. What did you just want to say? I didn't hear clearly. Quote. Juquan withdrew his left hand that had just sent out the tailed beast jade, turned around and asked with a puzzled expression. No, nothing. Xiaonan replied a little dumbfounded. While knowing a little more about Juquan's strength, he was also very glad that he did not use force to conquer at that time. Although she can do it to this extent, it takes a certain amount of time to gather chakra, and it is impossible to come casually like Juquan. Inside the underground base, the large snake pill that was doing the experiment was interrupted by a violent vibration, causing the experiment to fail again. Chakra of this level, is it the black robe powerhouse of the Night of the Nine Tails? The big snake pill was not angry, but while analyzing according to the limited information, he walked towards the entrance of the base very calmly. As soon as he walked outside, he saw Juquan's iconic black robe, and a familiar figure wearing a red cloud robe on a black background. Xiaonan, could it be that this black-robed powerhouse is also organized by Xiao? Orochimaru thought, did not forget to say hello on his lips, and said in a hoarse voice, presumably your excellency is the one who subdued the Nine Tails, and suddenly came to me today, did you want to help Konoha arrest me as a traitor? Quote. Seeing that the main lord was coming, Juquan narrowed his eyes, waved his hand and smiled. I am Juquan, it has nothing to do with Konoha, I am here to recruit you today, I have an organization, and I need talents like you to join. Quote. Oh, the big snake pill is also a smart person, knowing the organization that Juquan said, it is absolutely impossible to know the organization. Coupled with Xiao Nan's lips in the back, signaling not to say her identity, although the big snake pill was a little puzzled, he probably guessed some. Xiao Nan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the big snake pill usually did not wear the uniform of the organization, otherwise he might be exposed. Juquan-kun, I can only refuse your invitation, because now I have joined other organizations. The big snake pill spread his hands and seemed helplessly refused. No matter what, it was impossible for him to join other people's organizations so easily in front of Xiao Nan. Of course, the big snake pill was also waiting for Juquan to show his strength. In the eyes of the great snake pill, a strong person like Juquan would generally not tolerate rejection. If Juquan can show enough power to threaten him, then he can also jump ship in an upright manner. Even if pain pursues him at that time, he has enough reason to justify himself. This is Yang Mo. Xiao Nan watched the performance of the big snake pill, and his already cold and beautiful face became like frost, but there was no reason to stop it. Juquan naturally also saw the routine of the big snake pill, but it didn't matter, he had already guessed that it would be like this. If you want to recruit someone like the great snake pill, if you don't show a little strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult to deter. Thinking of this, Juquan smiled slightly, and then said word by word, reject me. But it will die. Quote. Hehe, Juquan-kun, do you think you can kill me? Orochimaru said with a smile, indicating that he did not believe it. Can threaten, and can kill, are two concepts. From the intelligence point of view, it is certain that Juquan's strength can threaten itself. But to say kill yourself, the big snake pill is very confident in his ability to survive. I want to try. Juquan also showed a smile. Under his domineering perception, unless the big snake pill could move instantaneously, there was absolutely no possibility of escape. Ninfa, hidden shadow snake hand. The big snake pill really deserved to be the three ninjas, and taking advantage of the kung fu of chatting, his hands instantly turned into a group of snakes, like Juquan launching a sneak attack. Just when the snakes were about to bite the target, Juquan moved sideways and lightly dodged the attack. It's up to me. Juquan moved his wrist, and suddenly exerted force under his feet, rushing towards the big snake pill, and the earth instantly cracked like a spider's web. So fast. In the eyes of the big snake pill, the speed of Juquan was already so fast that it was a little blurry, and he could only vaguely see the afterimages flashing in the air. However, in the end, it is also a character who has traversed the ninja world for many years, and the one-handed stand-in technique is brilliant, and the real body is instantly separated, leaving only a wooden stake left in place. Pong! Juquan's fist followed, not only knocking the stake into powder, but also denting the surrounding land, forming a circular crater with a diameter of 100 meters. Not only is the speed extremely fast, but even the strength is much stronger than the Tsunade who unlocked the Yin seal. Seeing this, the big snake pill walked out from behind a boulder with a solemn expression. Fortunately, I used the avatar technique. If I chose to resist this blow hard, I am afraid that I will be immortal and crippled. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149 Duguyan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. Hehe, such speed and power, Juquanjin's strength really surprised me. Quote. Orochimaru stuck out his tongue and revealed his trademark smile. But his expression involuntarily became solemn, no longer tempting, but ready to use the newly studied forbidden technique. After all, if you are hit by Juquan's fist, you may die. Finally decided to use the dirt to reincarnate, I'll give you time, just don't worry. Juquan saw the big snake pill seal and said without care. Oh, Juquanjin even knows this technique. Then I'm welcome, dirt rebirth. Quote. The big snake pill also knew that his technique had just been researched, and there were still many that had not been perfected. One of the biggest drawbacks was that the summoning speed was too slow, but hearing that Juquan gave him time, the big snake pill launched this technique with confidence. Pong. X2 ideographic period. Two wooden coffins appeared in front of the big snake pill, and the coffin board was marked, first, and second, respectively. Between the 1,000-hand pillars and the 1,000 hands pillar, it's a pity that it's not the peak strength. Juquan looked at the two coffins and shook his head. Hee, Juquanjin knows a lot, I'm getting more and more interested. The big snake pill responded, and at the same time the rebirth of the dirt had also been completed, and continued, as Juquanjin said, their strength has been limited a lot, but in the end, it is also two Hokage, and Juquanjin is inevitably too confident. Quote. For the big snake pill's remarks, Juquan was noncommittal, but instead looked at the pillars and the chest inside the coffin with interest. I was summoned by the dirt rebirth. The silver white-haired man was the first to walk out of the coffin and looked at the fine lines on his hands. Jauma, your forbidden technique has not been destroyed, and it has been forcibly summoned by someone using the technique you created, haha. The pillar also jumped out of the coffin, pointing at the exaggerated laugh. You idiot is not qualified to talk about me, aren't you also summoned by this technique? Kuruma responded coldly, also observing the situation around him. I guess that people nowadays would never have imagined that the Senjukuma known as the ninja god is actually a funny comparison. Juquan looked familiar, and the old friend said as if chatting. Xiaonan was also a little curious. After all, the masked man between the pillars and the so-called Madara in the organization were both strong people in the same period. However, as Orochimaru said, even if the strength is limited, it is Hokage in the end. Facing the combined attack of the two Hokage, even Konan will feel tricky. Maintaining her peak strength state is the foundation of her task. Therefore, she will not take the initiative to participate in such a battle, and at most help when Juquan's life is in danger. Thinking of this, Xiaonan put away his curiosity, and the figure silently retreated towards the outside of the battle circle. Who are you? It always feels like you know me well. Quote. Listening to Juquan's tone, Zuma scratched his head and asked. I am Juquan, but I have an organization, and I need talents like you to join, do you want to come together? Juquan introduced himself and threw an olive branch to them by the way. Pillar is known as the ninja god, and its strength goes without saying. Although he is a little weaker, he is also a research and creative talent, and half of the scrolls of the Book of Konoha's seal or forbidden arts that he has created or improved. X4 ideographic period. This sounds so familiar, isn't it what he said when he just recruited the Great Snake Pill? Xiaonan looked at Juquan speechlessly, and before the big snake pill could be recruited, he actually started the idea of between the pillars and the pillars. We are already dead, the rebirth of the dirt is only a temporary summoning of us, and we are Hokage, how can we join other organizations? Kuruma reminded. If you don't agree, then you can only hit until you agree, but unfortunately the rebirth of the dirt is not perfect enough, your current strength is not at its peak, it seems that you have to wait for your next resurrection. Juquan rubbed his chin and said with some pity. Resurrection. The column repeated suspiciously, this kind of thing can wait for next time. Orochimaru's eyes lit up, but because Xiaonan was present, he didn't ask anything more. That's right, you are still too weak now, and I am also looking forward to whether you can experience a little fun in fighting after you recover your peak strength. Koizumi explained, and expressed great dissatisfaction with the current overall strength of the ninja world. Hee, it seems that Juquanjin is still very confident in his strength, so the time for small talk is over. The big snake pill smiled conspiratorially, and pierced the two kunai marked with the technique into the back of the head between the pillars and the skull. At this moment, the two first and second generations of Hokage officially lost consciousness and became puppets who only knew how to fight. Night walking. With the illusion, he took out a handful of kunai and attacked first. Pong! Only in the next second, he was kicked out by Juquan and hit a stone, forming a hole. I'm sorry, under these eyes of mine, your illusions and ninjutsu are useless. Juquan said, removing the disguise from his eyes, revealing a pair of scarlet chakra eyes. It's not Sangoyu, that eye is kaleidoscope riding wheel eyes. The big snake pill was shocked, people with these eyes are not easy to deal with. As long as chakra is enough, almost most of the ninjutsu and illusion can be copied and used as is. And depending on the situation, Juquan does not look like a lack of chakra. However, the presence of the pillars made the big snake pill feel a lot relieved, and looked at Juquan and smiled slightly. You can copy ninjutsu, but can you still copy Mu Duan? Naruto God level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149. Duguian takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. Mu Dun Tree Realm has arrived. A large number of trees grew up from this barren land, forming a forest with a diameter of hundreds of meters, enclosing the 9 springs in the middle. It's kind of interesting. Although this forest is a little smaller, the quality is not bad, and the hardness is comparable to steel. Juquan casually stretched out his hand, patted one of the trees, and praised it in an understanding tone. After all, now that the rebirth of filthy soil is not perfect, the original strength between the pillars is limited, and it is indeed good to be able to do this step. Suddenly, several trees closest to the 9 springs bent down and wrapped around him, and became tighter and tighter. Seeing that the target was trapped, he grabbed Kuwu again and quickly attacked towards Juquan. Hehe, Juquan-kun, you also said that the hardness of these trees is comparable to steel, and now you are entangled, you can't do the link seal, I'm afraid it is. Orochimaru's words stopped before he finished speaking, because Juquan had already broken all the trees that were entangled with him. Looking at Juquan's relaxed face, it was as if these trees were just made of foam. Noticing this, Kuruma gave up the frontal attack and hurriedly used the Flying Thunder God technique. I saw his figure disappear instantly, and instead appeared from behind Juquan, and the Kuwu held high in his hand stabbed fiercely towards the back heart of Juquan. Flash! The corners of Juquan's mouth turned up slightly, and he activated the ability of the kaleidoscope, and his body moved forward 1 meter out of thin air, dodging this blow. This is space ninjutsu. Xiaonan's eyes widened in surprise and stared at Juquan, because she didn't notice that Juquan had any imprints. The speed is fast, the power is extremely great, the amount of chakra surpasses the tailed beast, and there is even space ninjutsu. How many whole cards does this man have? Seeing that the attack did not work, he continued to use the Flying Thunder God and rushed behind Juquan to attack. However, Juquan also did the same, and once again used a flash to avoid it, and the whole process was completed in an instant, not even a second. Since chakra is a reincarnated body of dirt, chakra's recovery speed is extremely fast, and he has just used ninjutsu, and he can recover all of it in a few seconds. And Juquan seems to be unrestricted, and can use flash at will. So the two strangely fell into a state of chasing me, one constantly using the Flying Thunder God, the other constantly using flashes, like a cat and mouse. It's just that it's hard to say who is a cat and who is a mouse. On the surface, it was Kuruma who had been attacking, and Juquan had been dodging. But in fact, since Juquan did not need to be sealed, the speed of flashing was much faster than that of Kuruma, and looking at his relaxed appearance, it seemed like he was playing with Kuruma. Xiaonan was already shocked to the point of numbness, and she observed clearly, every time Juquan flashed, not only did it not need to be sealed, but she didn't even need to rest, as if it could be used without restrictions. For such a person, Xiaonan felt that it was too terrible. Because of your attack he can dodge at any time, and he only needs to flash behind you and give you a slight sword. In fact, Juquan's ability to use a kaleidoscope also requires a lot of chakra. The reason why he can use it at will is simply because his chakra is too large. If you change to an ordinary ninja, it may only take 1 or 2 times and chakra will be exhausted. Of course, Juquan is not bored to the point of playing all the time. After using flashes continuously during this period, Juquan found that his ability had another flaw. That is the scope of his flash, limited to what can be seen with the eye. Although Juquan's sight and smell were domineering and he could perceive the surrounding environment at 360 degrees without dead ends, he could not flash backwards. If you can only use your eyes, it seems that you need to fuse your white eyes. Quote. Koizumi muttered in a low voice, wondering how to get a pair of white eyes from Hinata's house. In the Hokage world, the white eye can have a line of sight of 360 degrees. Thank you for letting me find a flaw. Then in return, I will let you have a special look, the real tree realm has come. After Juquan figured it out, he imitated the knot mark between the pillars just now in his hand, and said to the big snake pill with a smile. What? The big snake pill noticed the movement of the 9 spring seal, and he couldn't believe it. Juquan's unlimited ability to use space was enough to shock the great snake pill. Now he actually wants to use Mu Duan. Could it be that the kaleidoscope writing wheel I can even copy the blood succession boundary? Don't allow the big snake pill to think more, the seal of Juquan has already been completed, and he said softly. Mu Dun Tree Realm has arrived. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149 Dugayan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. The endless trees grew wildly with the 9 springs as the center, extending towards the distant horizon. Several of the huge and sharp trunks pierced the bodies between the pillars and the pillars in an instant, completely controlling them. At the same time, it also surrounded the big snake pill, and as soon as he moved, the sharp trunk would immediately plunge into his heart. This is really incredible. Even if the original Hokage recovers its full strength, I'm afraid it will be just that. Orochimaru swallowed his spit. Although it was difficult to kill him with physical attacks, he still felt a little frightened looking at the forest that could not be seen at a glance. After all, a person with this ability, who knows if there is any other means to kill him? Juquan then gave the big snake pill an answer. I know that the reincarnated body of dirt is difficult to kill, but it is just right to do an experiment. Juquan said, and the 2-tailed beast Jade changed hands and threw them between the pillars and the pillars trapped by the trees. Boom, X2. The 2 loud noises came to mind almost at the same time, and the pillars were almost instantly blown into slag. But soon, they recovered without any scars on their bodies. Sure enough, the tailed beast Jade composed of chakra alone can't kill them, then, so what? Quote. Turtle Pie Qigong. Juquan gathered his chi hand and slowly stretched it forward. A huge wave of light once again collided with the pillars, and even this forest was penetrated through a passage. This time, the reincarnated body of dirt between the pillars did not work. Everything was completely destroyed under the impact of chi, and it never recovered. It's so powerful, can I really still complete the task? Xiaonan in the distance, looking at the road through which the turtle sect Qigong ran out, and this forest that could not see the edge, muttered. She originally thought that even if she couldn't complete the mission, she could take the opportunity to assassinate Juquan with her own strength. But now she really knew it was wrong, and it was outrageously wrong. Juquan and her strength are not a dimension at all. Even if pain came in person, I am afraid that he would not be able to defeat this man. Big Snake Pill, give you another chance, join or die, you choose one yourself. Juquan sat on a wooden chair and waited with interest for Orochimaru's reply. It's so surprising to me, I can even kill the body of Soil Rebirth. But Juquan-kun, I have 2 questions for you. Quote. Orochimaru replied, the look of fear on his face had not yet receded. Name your doubts. Juquan lit a cigarette and took a deep breath. Since you have such strength, I am afraid that there is no need for me to help. Why do you want me to join your organization? Orochimaru asked with some doubt. It can't be said that he joined in order to complete the system tasks that may be triggered. Juquan thought for a while, and casually made up. You are a research-oriented talent, and your strength is not weak. Looking at the current ninja world, there are few people who are more suitable than you. Quote. So the second question. Orochimaru glanced at Xiaonan in the distance and stopped talking. Xiaonan, guard here, don't let anyone approach, I'll go around the base of the Great Snake Pill. Juquan beckoned and ordered Xiaonan in the distance. Where are the people? Xiaonan looked at the barren land around him. No. Now it should be said that it is a forest. In this forest, there is not the slightest sign of other life. Xiaonan knew that it was the Big Snake Pill who wanted to deliberately avoid her, so after glancing at the Big Snake Pill coldly, she still nodded and replied, understood. Quote. Although Xiaonan really wanted to use Shiki dance to track in and eavesdrop on intelligence, she gave up the idea when she thought of Juquan's powerful ability and the cautious Great Snake Pill. In the base, Orochimaru ordered his subordinates to pour 2 cups of tea, but Juquan didn't look at it and drank it directly. Juquanjin is not afraid that this tea is poisonous. Seeing this, the Big Snake Pill said with a sinister smile. I really can't think of any poison that can work on me, and even if it is poisonous, I can kill you in an instant. You are a smart person, you will not do such a stupid thing. Juquan put down the teacup and replied with a smile. Then the second question. Juquanjin said before, after the next resurrection of the first and second generations, they will be recruited into the organization. I think the resurrection mentioned by Juquanjin should not mean the rebirth of filthy soil. The big snake pill naturally did not poison, so he was not worried that Juquan would kill him, so he asked his doubts. You should have seen these eyes. Juquan said, his eyes switched to reincarnation eyes. This is. The big snake pill was shocked. These eyes were the eyes of the leader of the Shao organization, Heavenly Dao Pain, the legendary Eye of Reincarnation. That's right, it's the Eye of Reincarnation, the same as Shao's pain. Juquan nodded and explained, confirming Orochimaru's thoughts. Since you know the Shao organization, why do you still let Shao Nan follow you? The big snake pill was a little puzzled. Juquan was obviously not the one who knew, and Shao Nan followed Juquan. There must be a purpose. They treat me as prey. Why don't I treat them as prey? After all, the future development of the ninja world is inseparable from them. Juquan said with a smile, saying that he had known Xiaonan's identity for a long time. Juquan-kun, I didn't expect your vision to be so big. It was actually the entire ninja world. The big snake pill's eyes narrowed. Sure enough, the strength of the people, the pattern will not be small. Just like pain in Shaoli, the idea is world peace. World peace. Oh, it's easy. Let's talk about the resurrection, which is also a benefit for you to join the organization. Quote. Juquan guessed that the big snake pill was comparing himself with Shao, chuckled, and preached the truth. Oh, please also let Juquan-kun know. Quote. Orochimaru heard about himself and asked curiously. You have done so many things, don't you just want to pursue eternal life? It just so happens that the Eye of Reincarnation has a technique that can do this. Naruto God Level Majin Buu. Duluo Royal Beast Conquers Xiao Wu as a Rabbit Maid. Chapter 149 Duguyan takes the initiative to break up with Yutian Hengti. The Eye of Reincarnation actually has this ability. When Orochimaru heard this, he hurriedly asked. Gaining immortality, developing all ninjutsu, and exploring the truth of the world is exactly what Orochimaru is constantly pursuing. Although Pain also has reincarnation eyes, he has never heard him say that he also has this function. Of course, you join my organization, and as a salary, I can make you immortal. Juquan nodded and confirmed again. Regarding this point, Juquan did not deceive the big snake pill. The reincarnation innate technique of the reincarnation eye is actually to replenish life force. At the cost of the caster's own chakra and vitality, the target can be revived or returned to youth. So nice to work with. Orochimaru was very excited to hear this answer. He had conducted so many experiments, wasn't it just for this? Nice to work with. Juquan responded with a smile, and at the same time cast the reincarnation innate technique, restoring 10 years of life to the great snake pill. The green chakra, which represents life, shrouds the body of the large snake pill, and the cells that age with age, like dead wood in spring, regain their youthful vitality again. It's so amazing, Orochimaru praised, and the information fed back from his body told him all the time that he had returned to the peak of his 30s. Peak period. Juquan was not worried that the big snake pill would not admit it after returning to his youth. After all, it was only 10 years of life. As long as the great snake pill still wanted to gain life, then he had to listen to Juquan. Your next task is to perfect the dirt reincarnation and strive to restore his strength the next time he summons the pillar. Peak state. Quote. Juquan looked forward to it. By that time, the ninja world is estimated to be in chaos. This is no problem, but the time may be longer. In other words, Juquan-kun, what is your purpose? Big snake pill a tongue. Head, asked curiously. In the opinion of the big snake pill, the strength of the 9 springs itself has surpassed the pillars that were called the ninja gods at that time. You must know that the pillars ended the war in the ninja world and ushered in a new era of existence. Now Juquan is not only powerful in itself, but also has a kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, and even the legendary reincarnation eye. Those who hold such power can make huge waves wherever they are. So the big snake pill really couldn't figure out what Juquan wanted to do. My purpose is simple, just keep getting stronger. Juquan smiled softly and rightfully replied. As far as I know, with the current strength of the 9 springs kun, I'm afraid that no one in the entire ninja world can match it. Maybe only during the Warring States period, Uchiha and Senju Pillar joined forces, it was possible to defeat you. The big snake pill said puzzled. He didn't expect that the purpose of Juquan was just to become stronger. Only with a goal can there be the motivation to become stronger, but with the strength of Juquan, he is almost invincible in the ninja world, so becoming stronger has lost its due meaning. It is precisely because of this that the big snake pill will be puzzled. Join my organization, your horizons will be relaxed. Do you really think that there is only one world in this world? Juquan squinted and said, remembering the ultimate task of the system, he couldn't help but smile slightly. The ultimate task is to be strong enough to break through space, and as for where it will go after breaking through space, Juquan does not know. But even the Hokage world has it, so other worlds are estimated to exist, and even go to the Dragon Ball world. Are there really other worlds? Orochimaru looked startled and asked with a thirst for knowledge. Of course, as far as I know, some of the strong people in the world can forcibly destroy the world with their own strength. Pay attention, it is really destroying the world. Oh, the whole planet exploded with a bang. Juquan gestured, describing a certain guy who can explode planets with one hand. This is really terrible. But it's just as much fun. The big snake pill was in a cold sweat, and after listening to Juquan's words, he only felt cold all over his body. But his strong thirst for knowledge forced him to want to explore everything in other worlds. Juquan-kun, I take back my previous words, it turns out that your vision has surpassed this world. Outside the base, Xiaonan was reporting the situation here. You mean you've gained his trust? Pain, who was far away, asked in a deep voice. Barely, after all, I'm just his assistant now. Xiaonan thought about it and said uncertainly. In that case, then the assassination plan is cancelled, you continue to gain his trust, see what he has premeditated, in order not to make him suspicious in the future, I will temporarily list you as a traitor to the organization. Pain frowned, because Nine Springs was too powerful, it had already caused him to feel a strong sense of unease in his heart. I know, Juquan has come out, let's end the conversation. Xiaonan said, dismissed the contact technique, and quietly stared at the 9 springs that came out of the base, not knowing what he was thinking. Chapter 31. At the moment when Juquan walked out of the Great Snake Pill base, the long-lost system voice sounded again. Congratulations on taking the initiative to trigger the side quest, the organization of the strong is completed. Mission rewards. 5,000 energy, Navy 6 style, slave collar. Navy 6 style. Gun, iron, shaving, land foot, paper painting, moonstep, physical skills that surpass human limits, suitable for improving organizational strength. Slave collar. Belt, the specific use process, please explore by the host. As expected, a side quest was actually triggered and completed. However, in the mission reward, it seems that something strange is mixed in. Open the properties panel again. Name, Juquan. Subject, infinite regeneration, Majin Buu physique, absorption and division, control self-form, independent cultivation. Abilities, use of Qi, turtle Qigong, dance void technique, 3 tails complete body ability, 9-tailed yin chakra ability, kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, domineering, reincarnation eye. Energy, 10,000. Slaves, Senju Tsunade, Shizune Kato. Disciple, Uchiha Itachi. Organization, Orochimaru. Juquan suddenly found that the system did not mark the reward props on the attribute panel together. Is there also a sense of shame in the system? 9 springs and a forehead, well, this is very systematic. Saying goodbye to the big snake pill that came out to send him, Juquan took Xiaonan and embarked on the way home. On the way back to Konoha, Xiaonan pretended to be careless and asked, what did that big snake pill tell you? Quote, nothing, just a discussion of the truth of the lower world. Juquan showed an indescribable smile, waved his hand and said, definitely not. Xiaonan followed behind, hearing Juquan's reply, and subconsciously disbelieved. Because she remembered that when she was leaving, Orochimaru glanced at herself casually. That kind of look, as if looking at a slaughtered lamb, is full of pity. So Xiaonan was sure that they must have said something. But since her current identity is only an assistant, she asked more for fear of being suspected, so she had to stop there. At the same time, the shadows of the major ninja villages also began to be burned. The arrival of the tree realm cast by Juquan could not be concealed at all, and a forest with a diameter of tens of thousands of meters suddenly appeared. And the place of appearance is still in the territory of the Fire Nation, which is very intriguing. In addition, a spy found the figure of Juquan in black robes returning to Konoha village from that forest. As long as you check a little, it is not difficult to find that the 9 springs have an inseparable relationship with the Night of the 9 Tails, and even the disappearance of the 3 Tails Isofu. Thunder Shadow Office. It won't be Konoha's original Hokage resurrected. But he has been dead for many years. Quote. Thunder Shadow was furious, and the cup in his hand shattered again. The ninjas below were also sighing secretly. If it was really the resurrection of the original Hokage, then Konoha would usher in another leap. Tsuchikage Office. This black-robed man can never be the original Hokage, go and check it again. Onoki frowned. He was older, and he had experienced the era of Senjukuma and Uchiha Madara. He also knew deeply that if the original Hokage was still alive, it would be absolutely impossible to sit idly by and watch Konoha decay. Wind Shadow Office. The current sand-hidden village can no longer withstand consumption, so increase the establishment of diplomatic relations with Konoha, at least it will not harm us. The 4th generation of Wind Shadow put down the information in his hand and sighed sadly. Water Shadow Office. If this person is our Mist Yin's person, Chojuro, please ask this person to come to us Mist Yin, and tell the Hokage of Konoha, as long as this person helps us calm the civil unrest, the benefits can be opened casually. Terame, who had just succeeded Shui Ying, ruffled her hair charmingly and said with great interest. Lord Mizukage, I will work hard to complete the task. The somewhat shy Nagajiro assured, holding up his glasses. Hokage Office. Shikaku, you said that the Senju clan, are there any wooden ninjas left outside? After receiving the information, Watergate was also confused and asked helplessly. After all, only Tsunade was left in the Senju clan, and Tsunade had not left Konoha at the time of the incident. Naruto-sama, even if there are really ninjas who can do it, if you want to achieve this level, you must have a huge chakra support, you might as well consider it from this aspect. Lu Ju thought of the forest with a diameter of tens of thousands of meters in the intelligence, and frowned and analyzed. It was hard for him to imagine what a huge chakra would be needed to do this. If it is a huge chakra, I seem to know who it is. Shizune, I'm going out for a while, and I'm not coming back for dinner at night. Senju clan, Tsunade said, and hurried out. She was always afraid that Jukwon would think that she was not reserved, so she kept restraining herself from going to Jukwon. Well, now, the appearance of Mudden Ninjutsu in the territory of the Land of Fire seems to have another valid reason. Could it be that she was originally an unreserved woman? No, this is a matter of blood succession of the Thousand Hands clan. You have to ask yourself. Well, that's it. Thinking of this, Tsunade covered his face and quickened his pace in the direction of the 9 Springs restaurant. The Konoha guard is simply useless, no wonder it has been a lot of disasters. When Kusin walked through the gate of Konoha with Konan, a kaleidoscope flashed red, and the guard ninja let him go on the spot. Xiaonan smiled cooperatively and did not express any opinion. You know, not everyone has a kaleidoscope like 9 Springs. People who can pass through the gate of Konoha so easily without registering can be counted on one hand. Otherwise, what do those spies who have worked so hard and tried all kinds of methods to be able to blend into Konoha think? The restaurant in Kusan is located on the outskirts of Konoha, and it takes only a few minutes to walk there. Strange, why did Tsunade come? Is it because of Mu Duan? Seeing the figure waiting in front of his door, Jukwon said with some puzzlement. That is Tsunade Haim, who is known as one of the 3 shinobi of Konoha. It looks weird. Quote. Xiaonan, who is also a woman, can naturally find the invisible resentment that exudes from Tsunade. In fact, it is not strange that Tsunade has a grudge. She finally has a valid reason to come to Jukwon, but finds that Jukwon is not at home. Hungry and not to say, I waited bitterly for a long time, but I saw Jukwon bring a good-looking woman back. No matter who you change, you will be extremely resentful. Who is she? Tsunade frowned and asked a little cautiously. Despite her grievances, she is not the kind of woman who does not know how to measure. From the moment he saw Konan, Tsunade was secretly analyzing. Appearance aside, whether the woman in front of her is walking, or the amount of chakra that far exceeds that of ordinary ninjas. All indications fully show that this woman is not an ordinary person. Newly applied assistant Xiaonan, free. Jukwon smiled and added an accent to the word free, not caring at all about the black line on Xiaonan's head. Free, how can you lack money with your strength? Quote. Tsunade asked suspiciously, always feeling a little unrealistic. Of course it's lacking. After all, I don't want to do such unskilled work as robbery, and naturally I won't have enough money. Jukwon explained it in a serious way, telling the word poverty with a righteous spirit. But then again, he really wasn't lying. Because if you really want to talk about strength, he can quickly become the richest man in the ninja world even by robbery, but that will be a lot less fun. So Xiao Nan, who was silently observing on the side, made another note, and the target was extremely short of money. I really don't understand you. Tsunade muttered quietly, and then urged, hurry up and open the door to make me some food, just in time for me to ask you something. Quote. Looking at Tsunade's rather arrogant little expression, Koizumi felt as if he understood something. Tsunade, this is a drunken man, not to drink. Opening the door, Jukwon pointed upstairs and said, Xiaonan, there are many empty rooms above, you can choose a random room to live in, don't walk around at will in the middle of the night, be careful of ghosts. Quote. Believe in you to have ghosts. Although he thought so in his heart, Xiaonan's face did not show the thoughts in his heart, but nodded obediently and replied, I understand. Quote. After seeing Konam go upstairs, Koizumi took Tsunade to another room. The woman named Xiaonan just now is not an ordinary person, and there must be another purpose for giving you an assistant for free, and you actually believe her. As soon as the door was closed, Tsunade reminded very seriously. Of course I believe it. No matter what her purpose is, this is just an assistant to me, so you shouldn't be jealous, right? Quote. Koizumi smiled and took Tsunade's hand and whispered in her ear. Joke, I'll eat your guy's vinegar. Tsunade struggled, but unfortunately did not break away, so he could only refute with words. So what are you doing here? Jukwon raised his eyes and asked knowingly. A forest suddenly appeared on the border of the land of fire, much like the arrival of the wood ninjutsu tree realm, so I came to ask if you did it. Tsunade pretended to be calm and asked his doubts, closing his eyes by the way, secretly looking forward to Jukwon's next move. Oh, so you didn't come here because you missed me, just asking such boring questions. Unexpectedly, Jukwon's tone suddenly became extremely cold, and he let go of his hand very dissatisfied. He could naturally feel that Tsunade was still extremely reserved in front of him now. And what he has to do now is to break this reservedness of Tsunade. Anyway, Tsunade took the initiative to send it to the door, then he is not polite, just rest assured and boldly adjusted. Quote. For Tsunade, Kusun's sudden transformation simply caught her off guard. Was this man angry? Feeling the bad hand raging around his waist stop moving, Tsunade opened his eyes and looked at Koizumi with some surprise. According to Jukwon's style, even if you are angry, you should invade yourself even more. If you come over and just ask this question, I can tell you unequivocally that I did it, and you can go. Jukwon said lightly, and his expression gradually became indifferent. On the surface, it seemed as if he was really disappointed in Tsunade. What's wrong, suddenly so serious? Tsunade avoided the important and pretended not to find anything, trying to fool the past. After all, her feelings had just been provoked, how could she leave easily? Aren't you going to ask that question? I've already told you, is there anything else? Jukwon lit a cigarette, and was not in a hurry, and said in a flat and distant tone. You don't want this, I'm a little unused to it. Tsunade heard the obvious sense of alienation in Koizumi's words, and his heart couldn't help but jerk. The thought of this man becoming cold and no longer interested in himself in the future. She suddenly felt empty in her heart, as if she had lost something important to her. Is it all because he is too reserved? Haven't you always disliked me for making you do those bad things? Now you are free. Quote. Jukwon raised his hand and pointed to the gate. It's not, that's not true. Quote. Tsunade was stunned when he heard this, and subconsciously shook his head to deny it. Oh, so what do you mean? In fact, you really long for what I do to you. Quote. Koizumi seemed to be a little interested again, lightly hooked Tsunade's chin, looked directly into her eyes and asked. Quote. The aggrieved Tsunade wanted to deny it, but he was afraid that he would lose Jukwon because of his reserve, so he didn't answer. Isn't it? If not, go home, I don't like to force people. Quote. Seeing that Tsunade refused to speak, Koizumi once again broke through her psychological defenses, and a devilish smile appeared on her face again. What the hell do you want? Tsunade was anxious, and the whole person turned pale. When she saw Juquan's familiar smile, she knew that she had been teased. But what if you were teased? Tsunade had a feeling that if he really left in a fit of rage, he might really lose this man completely. Don't you think these clothes look a bit cumbersome? Looking at Tsunade's appearance as he was about to go crazy, Koizumi knew that he had finally succeeded. Although he did not answer Tsunade's question head-on, he deliberately pointed to Tsunade's collar that was about to be blown off. The meaning is obvious, that is, let Tsunade change those cumbersome clothes by himself. Isn't it just trying to strip me naked? Then come on, you used to do it anyway. Quote. Tsunade wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, stood up and said. No, 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 this time you have to do it yourself, you have to pick it slowly. Koizumi shook his index finger and motioned for Tsunade to begin his performance, while his eyes peering out the window without a trace. It was Xiaonan who was hiding outside the window, and she covered her mouth, trying not to make a sound. No way, it's so surprising. Unexpectedly, one of the three ninjas, Princess Tsunade Haim of Konoha, actually had this relationship with Koizumi, and it seemed as if they were master and slave. Even she, a secret bystander, felt that Juquan's request was very ashamed. Shame. Also as a woman, Xiaonan even kind of wanted to help Tsunade escape the clutches of Juquan. Because in her eyes, Tsunade must have been coerced by Koizumi. But Xiaonan couldn't do this, because she still had to get more information about Juquan. What's more, the difference in strength between her and Juquan is too big. Even if she helps, I am afraid that it will not change anything. However, I feel most ashamed. Shame, it's still Tsunade in the room. Tsunade had long thought that Koizumi might offend himself in any way, or use any part of his body. Go and serve him. But before that, these things were all operated by Juquan. Tsunade was just passively bearing, and then she could at least deceive herself, and all this was forced. But now, letting Tsunade take the initiative to take off her clothes, as if she was actively courting pleasure, was completely different from before. Finally, as if she had made some decision, she slowly took off her clothes according to Juquan's words. Is it okay? Tsunade's silver teeth clenched, strong shyness. The shame made her breathing gradually quicker. Hurry up. What do you want to do when you take off your clothes? Seduce me. Quote. Juquan pretended to be surprised and asked exaggeratedly. You give the old lady a little more time. Quote. Tsunade roared in silence, and the tears that had only been wiped dry began to roll around his eyes again. Don't get excited, take your inner thoughts, and say them slowly. Koizumi slowly guided Tsunade and flicked her red Portuguese by the way. Again set off waves. I want you, like last time. Although Tsunade has already done this, some words are still difficult to say. What do you want from me? I don't know what to do without making it clear. Quote. Juquan spread his hands and said with a very confused expression. What a chin beast. Outside the window, Xiaonan's cold and pretty face was hung with a hint of blush, and he couldn't help but think differently. What would she do if it was herself standing in the room? Accept coercion. No, rather die. Xiaonan's expression suddenly became firm. As everyone knows, Tsunade also had this idea at the beginning. It's a pity that you can't survive, you can't die. I want you to love me like last time. Tsunade in the room broke down and shouted, only to feel that all dignity was gone. This time, she completely lost the last trace of reserve in her heart, just because she was afraid of losing Juquan. It seems that the God-level adjustable gear jump. The effect of the egg is really not blown, it has only been used a few times, and it can actually allow Tsunade to achieve this level. Juquan rubbed his chin and thought, wondering what would be the effect of using it a few more times. Now you are satisfied, just like you said, I am especially eager for your tuning. Tsunade laughed miserably. Having lost her dignity, reserve, and bottom line, she had nothing to worry about. On your knees. Juquan nodded in satisfaction and said without refusal. When Tsunade heard this, his knees bent involuntarily, and he knelt on the ground as if he were destined. Really obedient, aren't you hungry? Although I don't have anything to eat here, but I can reward you with some drink first, so that you can pad your stomach. Jukwon touched Tsunade's smooth and pretty face and said gently, "Do you have a drink here?" Tsunade looked around the bedroom, and there was nothing but a chuang. "Trust me, drinks are such a thing, how much there is," Jukwon said as he threw his waist forward. "Woo." Tsunade, who reflected, suddenly opened his eyes, and a strong sense of suffocation descended again. The first rays of sunlight in the morning shone on Tsunade, waking her up with a slightly harsh light. Who knew that as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw a big smiling face. "Awake, come and have some breakfast, special beef. Milk and sandwich, it tastes very good." Quote. Koizumi gently picked Tsunade up and served a very serious-looking breakfast. The sudden gentleness contrasted sharply with the roughness of last night, making Tsunade unable to tell which was the real Kusan. Last night, her delicate little buttocks were swollen and looked fuller. Not only that, Tsunade cried all night, his eyes were swollen, his throat was hoarse, and now he even hurts to speak. "How could you be so kind?" Tsunade asked hoarsely as he looked at the food in front of him, a spicy tingling in his throat, as if the thing was still raging inside. "What are you talking about? You are my woman, and it is proper to be nice to you," Jukwon said exaggerated and firmly, and then urged with some expectation, "Don't say more, eat quickly." Quote. Under Koizumi's gaze, Tsunade took a bite of the sandwich. White jam spilled from the bread and instantly filled the mouth, and a strange and familiar smell came out. "Well, white jam, didn't you find it clean? I used bread to wipe it clean for you, and this bread is really absorbent." Quote. Jukwon explained on the side, picking up the cow by the way. The milk was handed to Tsunade. "No need to ask, cattle. Milk is also not a serious cow. Milk." Tsunade frowned, but still submissively drank it up. "Now your endurance is still too poor, you still need to exercise more, otherwise you will pee again." Jukwon helped Tsunade put down the cup and pointed to a puddle of water on the ground and said, "You didn't cause it yet." Tsunade's voice was still hoarse, and he couldn't shout much loudly, and he wanted to treat it with palm cactus, but he was stopped. "This is proof that you have been trained, don't treat it yourself," Jukwon couldn't refusefully remind. You guy." Quote. Tsunade complained, still choosing to obey Kusan's words, and there was no treatment. "If you wait for natural recovery, I am afraid it will take at least 3 or 5 days, and it seems that some of them have suffered. Don't complain about me, who let you shout so loudly yesterday, it is estimated that Xiaonan heard it." Koizumi patted Tsunade's red and swollen little buttocks and said with a mocking smile. Tsunade did not refute this time, as Jukwon said, after she let go of everything, her long-suppressed emotions were satisfied, what other luxuries? When Tsunade went home, he happened to see Conan, who was going downstairs. The two of them turned red at the same time, simply said hello, and left in a hurry. "Xiaonan, clean up the room, did you sleep well last night?" Jukwon saw Xiaonan enter the house and took the initiative to say hello. "Very good." Xiaonan squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth, looking at the water stains on the ground, and his cold face became more and more cold as frost. "Last night, Tsunade shouted all night, how could he sleep well? The point is that Xiaonan can't leave yet, what if he misses some important information?" I didn't expect Jukwon to change so much. In the end, Tsunade fainted, and he was still like a nobody. As a result, not only did he feel very uncomfortable listening to him, but he also did not get any information. Yesterday the cup was not taken properly, the water was spilled on the ground, and I wiped it clean by the way. Jukwon noticed Xiaonan's gaze, the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, and explained casually. Quote exclamation mark quote. Xiaonan's pupils suddenly dilated, she was so angry. Of course, she knew what this was, and she also knew that Jukwon was lying to her in a serious way. But Xiaonan can't expose it, otherwise it won't expose her eavesdropping last night. I could only pick up the mop and slowly clean it up. Packed up, then what? Xiaonan cleaned up the last traces, wiped sweat, got up and asked. "Come with me to Hinata's house for a spin." After speaking, Jukwon put on a black robe and said with some expectation. Hyuga clan land. The news of Jozumi's arrival to the Hyuga family spread all over the place, and as soon as he reached the gate, he saw that Hyuga Hinata was already waiting at the door. "Sir, welcome to the Hyuga clan, I don't know what you do." Hinata said politely while ordering the people to serve tea. I am Jukwon, and the Hyuga clan does have something to do today, and I owe you a favor. Jukwon took Xiaonan to sit down and said with a smile. Oh, I don't know if Lord Jukwon needs help with anything, my Hyuga clan will definitely do my best. Quote. Hinata said positively, and at the same time his mind began to come alive. If you can get the favor of Jukwon, I am afraid that the future development of the Hyuga family will reach a higher level. But in the same way, Hinata Hiyashi will not think that pies will fall from the sky, and what Jukwon said is not ordinary. It's simple, I want a pair of white eyes. Jukwon took a sip of the freshly brewed tea and said it lightly, as if saying another trivial matter. What the? Xiaonan was still thinking before, why did Jukwon come to the Hyuga clan? But she never expected that Jukwon came to find someone to ask for a blank eye. Even though Conan, who had never been to Konoha before, had heard of the ability of the Hyuga clan's white eyes, and knew that the Hyuga family never allowed the white-eyed spread of their own clan. In Xiaonan's opinion, Jukwon already has a kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, and his ability is much stronger than that of white eyes, and there is no need to change white eyes. Even if you really want to roll your eyes, you can get it by assassinating a Hyuga clan member directly. But she never expected that Jukwon would directly ask the patriarch for a pair of white eyes in person, and said it so bluntly. Hee, Lord Jukwon said and smiled, white eyes are an important symbol of my Hyuga clan, this is easily not passed on. Hinata thought for a moment and said with an embarrassed expression. Although I don't like to use some secret tricks, have you ever seen a beast that absolutely does not bite? I haven't seen it anyway, so don't let me down by my kindness. Quote. Koizumi hinted at a pun, and although the tone was flat, it sounded like another layer to Hinata Hiyashi. It is true that what Xiaonan has thought about, Jukwon has also thought about. Secretly killing a white-eyed clan and getting a pair of white eyes is simply not too easy. But Hinata is a member of the Hyuga clan after all, and by doing so, Koizumi is also giving the Hyuga family a chance to get some benefits in advance. This, please also ask Lord Jukwon to wait for a moment, I need to think about it. Quote. Hyuga Hiyashi can be the patriarch of the Hyuga family, and naturally he is not a fool. He naturally understood the meaning of Jukwon. If you take the initiative to hand over a pair of white eyes, you can not only get a favor from Jukwon but also gain a goodwill. But if he refused, not only would the Hyuga clan get nothing, but Jukwon was likely to directly assassinate a Hyuga clan member, and he would also be able to get a white eye. The point is that with the strength of Jukwon, even the Hyuga clan can't afford to offend. Even if you turn back and complain to the Hokage, it is useless to be afraid. Haven't you thought about it yet? Jukwon urged. After all, I didn't eat breakfast, just admired Xiaonan pouting his hips and working. This time by noon, he was already very hungry. Lord Jukwon, the white eyes will be served later, it's already noon, how about eating in my clan? After thinking about the pros and cons, Hinata Hiyashi decided to hand over her eyes and invited Koizumi to dine with her by the way. Well, then there will be a job for you to arrange. Koizumi nodded and smiled. Since Hinata Hiyashi agreed to hand over the white eyes, then everything was easy to say. At the dinner table, Koizumi saw Hinata. Although he is still a little baby less than a year old, his pink little face is cute. Little Hinata lay quietly in her mother's arms, and from time to time she quickly glanced at the stranger Jukwon. Then, fearing that he would be discovered, he quickly turned his little head. Lord Koizumi, this is the little girl Hinata. Seeing this, Hinata introduced, her smile full of love. Good, kid is cute. Jukwon praised, and at the same time began to look forward to it. What would happen to Hinata, who was shy in the future, if he brought a slave caller? Maybe she'll be shy to death. Lord Jukwon, I have a question for you. After a while, Hinata Hiyashi put down her chopsticks and said. Please. While eating the food, Jukwon said that he listened. I think you also know that my Hyuga clan has always had the difference between the clan family and the separation of the family, but the clan family and the division family are not harmonious, and the separation of the family is only due to a spell marked to succumb to the clan family. Hinata Hiyashi began to explain in great detail, and her expression gradually became serious. The spell mark is a caged bird. Jukwon said halfway. Lord Juquan even knows this. That's right, a caged bird. Quote. Hinata was shocked. About the caged bird, the Zong family will not reveal it to the outside world. Even if it had to be mentioned for some reason, it would only be a spell. As for the separation, they have always regarded the caged bird as a shame, so they will not say anything outside. I probably know some. Juquan simply responded, and then continued to eat in another dish. Lord Juquan is not only strong, but also has such a broad vision, which really impresses me, the caged bird. Hinata praised, and then continued to elaborate. So what? Please complete the summary within the two crosses. Quote. Juquan interrupted in time, otherwise looking at Hinata's posture, I am afraid that I don't know how long I will talk. To put it simply, I just want to ask Lord Juquan, what would you do if you encountered this situation? Hinata pondered for a moment and asked simply. It's simple, just don't cage the birds. Juquan waved his hand and said, looking like it should be. Lord Juquan doesn't know something. This is the family rule, even if I don't cage the bird, there are elders or others in the clan who oppose it. Hinata Hiyashi looked worried and said helplessly. This is simple, anyway, I owe you a personal favor, if it is difficult, I can help you solve this matter. After eating the food, Juquan wiped his hands and showed a friendly smile. Oh, could it be that Lord Juquan wants to? Hinata Hiyashi was stunned when she heard this, and she didn't quite understand it at first. But think about it carefully, what else can Juquan do? It must be killing. Immediately, Hinata Hiyashi quickly shook his head and explicitly refused. No, no, no. No matter what they say, it's also my Hyuga clan, how could I do that? Quote. Whatever you want, anyway, you are the head of the Hyuga family, if you change your mind in the future, you can go to the restaurant outside Konoha to find me. Juquan got up and took his leave, and by the way, he also flicked little Hinata's little face. Then if you need it in the future, you will definitely go to harass Lord Juquan, please take this well. Hinata got up and sent it off, and at the same time took out a scroll that was sealed with white eyes. A street without people. Juquan unsealed the scroll and held the white eye in his hand. You wouldn't want to change eyes here, would you? Seeing this, Xiaonan asked, after all, this place is still on the street, and there are no medical equipment. Give you a little magic. Juquan absorbed the white eyes and took the initiative to show his palm. Ha! Xiaonan looked down at Juquan's hand and found that where was the existence of white eyes. The white eyes seemed to have evaporated in the palm of this guy's hand, and there was no trace of existence in sight. But when she raised her head and met Juquan's eyes again, she was stunned again. I saw Juquan's eyes bulging, which was a sign that the Hyuga family had opened their eyes. Xiaonan, I didn't expect you to be a white tiger. Juquan fumbled his chin and said seriously. Oops. Xiaonan was shocked, her code name in Xiao's organization was White Tiger. Now that he said it to his face, he must have discovered his identity. You know all about it. Quote. Xiaonan's eyes narrowed, and he asked with a solemn expression. Even though she knew that the enemy was no match for Juquan, she had already prepared an explosive charm in her hand, ready to deal with emergencies at any time. Although the field of view is black and white, you can still see clearly, and there is not a single hair. Juquan nodded and said very seriously. See it clearly. Looking at Juquan, who was using white eyes, Xiaonan seemed to understand something, and hurriedly blocked the lower side with his hand. Although it is indeed a good thing to know now that he has not been discovered. But as a woman, being seen there by men, no matter how calm Xiaonan was, he couldn't help but scold with an embarrassed look, indecent. Quote. There are so few people in the robe, and I don't know who is the most vulgar person. When Juquan heard this, he retorted with a bad smile. You, quote. Xiaonan, who was shy and angry, finally burst out and clenched his fist with his other hand and hit Juquan's eyes. Flash. Juquan subconsciously flashed back, and after dodging Xiaonan's punch, he was quite surprised and praised. It's really convenient to have white eyes, let's try to see if you can penetrate the wall later. Quote. Although Xiaonan didn't hit a punch, his chi also dissipated a lot. Although he looked at Juquan's gaze with a little unhappiness, he did not continue to move. Don't be angry, you see I closed my eyes. Juquan pointed to the eyes that had returned to normal, and said with a sincere expression. Generally, when opening the white eye, because chakra stimulates the meridians around the eyes, it will inevitably cause the blue tendons of the eyes to burst. Even in Juquan, when using white eyes, chakra will stimulate the cells around the eyes, causing a situation that seems to be bruised. It's just that the physique of Majin Buu of Juquan can very cleverly hide these stimulated cells under the skin. Although he looks no different from a normal person on the outside, he is actually still open and his eyes are still open. Just close your eyes. Said so, but Xiaonan still didn't take away the hand that was blocking the bottom. As a woman, she has a strong sixth sense. Even though the bruises in Juquan's eyes have recovered, she still has the feeling that she has been seen in full. Xiaonan didn't know if this was his own illusion. Anyway, it was strange, and even the bottom became strange. I said, how did you replace the white eye directly, your chakra eye? After Xiaonan tried to calm down the strange feeling below, he remembered Juquan's eyes and couldn't help but ask. It's just a little trick, I have something to do later, you go back to the store first. Juquan smiled and looked at Shi Yan's home next to him, so he ordered Xiaonan to go back. Understood. Xiaonan answered and disappeared directly with the teleportation technique, but the figure appeared on the street corner and began to track Juquan. Juquan naturally knew that he was being followed, but it didn't matter. Anyway, he just came to find Xian according to the agreement. As for Xiaonan, from the time she eavesdropped on Koizumi and Tsunade's living spring palace, her fate had already been preordained. It's been 2 days, Lord Juquan hasn't arrived yet, you shouldn't forget me. In the room, Sunset remembered what had happened at the restaurant that day, and felt that familiar sense of powerlessness again. It can be said that in the past 2 days, every time Shi Yan thinks of it, her body will be soft, but she can't get catharsis. Until one chance, her sinful little hand reached underneath. 9 springs, Lord Juquan. This time, Shi Yan used the same method as usual to solve it, moaning softly in her mouth, groaning, making kitten barks. Spring-like sound. Yo, Xian, I have fulfilled your wish. Juquan suddenly flashed into the room and greeted with a smile. As early as outside, he saw Shi Yan lying at home through his white eyes, and actually hid at home to comfort himself. So Juquan felt that it was time for him to appear, and with the perspective of his white eyes, he could indeed pass through the obstacles, so he flashed directly into Xian's house. Lord Juquan. Seeing the appearance of the person who was thinking about it, Shi Yan was first overjoyed, but then thought of his current situation, and hurriedly lowered his head and screamed, Lord Juquan, don't look. Quote. Don't look at what? Oh, it turns out that Xian is hiding at home alone, and she is actually doing such a dirty thing. Quote. Juquan asked knowingly, and then suddenly laughed. The target has turned off the white eyes, do not be afraid. Even such a young girl does not let go. But there is still this kind of operation. Go back and try. Outside the window, Xiaonan was still very responsible for the work of obtaining intelligence. Although seeing this scene, reason told her that she should leave quickly, otherwise it would definitely be like the night she eavesdropped on Tsunade. Not only would she not be able to obtain any information, but she would also make herself strange. But the strange feeling on his body made Xiaonan stay, and he also happened to learn Shi Yan's self-comfort method. Lord Juquan, don't say that, I'm not. Inside the house, Shi Yan covered her small face and explained. Being looked at by Juquan like this made her feel that the feeling of happiness on her body increased dozens of times in vain. Not what? Juquan smiled and asked, it seems that this delicate little flower can already be picked. I'm not indecent, yay. Quote. Shi Yan finally let out a small beast-like scream, accompanied by a snort, completely collapsed on the ground and did not move. This is also Juquan's intention. After all, the girl's first time, if there is not enough preparation, but it hurts. And Shi Yan has just vented, I think it will be more durable. Lord Juquan, I'm sorry I disappointed you. Shi Yan eased up for a while, and reason returned to his brain. Thinking of the person who was thinking about Twilight, seeing the obscene scene she had just had, Shi Yan only felt that she had lost everything, and cried out instantly. It's nothing, I like Xian just now. Juxian hugged Xian, wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and comforted gently. Are you sure? Quote. Shi Yan opened her eyes, looked at Juquan who was nearby, and asked with a red face. I didn't expect this guy to be good either. Xiaonan outside the window, looking at Juquan, who comforted the girl, did not make other movements, and his cold face eased a lot. Then Xian, I will let you experience true happiness as a woman, are you willing? The corners of Juquan's mouth curled up and continued to ask. Don't say yes. Xiaonan's expression immediately became cold, and this guy from Juquan really had some plans. I do, Lord Juquan. Shi Yan buried her head in Juquan's arms and nodded gently. Juquan got the answer, smiled slightly, rolled over and pressed up. Soon, a girl's scream came from the room, but it didn't take long for the cry to become happy. Although the girl's voice is soft and easy to push down, her durability is a hard injury. Juquan lit a cigarette and said to himself. Looking at the sunset that had passed out, Juquan silently cleaned up the battlefield and prepared to go back to business. It's so much. Xiaonan outside the window didn't know what to say. In the previous few hours, Shi Yan had crouched by the window many times, enduring the vigorous conquest of Juquan. Although this is understandable, after all, outside the window is the courtyard of Xian's house, and it will not be seen by outsiders at all. But Xiaonan can hide outside the window, and every time he sees Shi Yan's painful and cheerful expression, it makes Xiaonan feel like he is there. The body is even more strange. But fortunately, it was finally over. Xiaonan breathed a sigh of relief, but didn't know why. He always felt his body. It's not up or down, it's very uncomfortable. Hokage office. Naruto-sama, this is the case with us mist, I hope you can send that powerful ninja to help. Chojuro of the Fog Feint submitted the power of attorney and said very seriously. I sympathize with your situation, but that one is not a ninja, and I can't move. Watergate rubbed his temples and said helplessly. Although the conditions offered by the Misty Hidden Village are very attractive. People, it is very beneficial for the development of Konoha. But thinking of Juquan's unruly character and high fees, Watergate is still not sure that it can invite Juquan. How could it be? Isn't Naruto-sama okay either? Quote. Changjuro asked puzzled. If it weren't for the fact that Watergate's expression didn't look like a fake, he would even think that Watergate was lying to him. Such a powerful person is not a ninja, and he is not at the disposal of Naruto. This is something that you dare not think about in Wuin Village. In this way, I will take you to a place in the evening, and you will tell him yourself. Watergate sighed and began to speed up the processing of documents in order to make time. When midnight finally arrived, Mizuman took the long-awaited Chojuro to the door of the restaurant. That Lord Juquan, open a restaurant here. Quote. Chojuro looked strange, as if asking why Watergate was overkill. It's similar to what you see, it's a restaurant, but he also accepts private assignments. Watergate nodded and said, leading the way into the restaurant. Nagajiro swallowed. He didn't understand what kind of person it was, who could actually get out of the control of the shadow in the village. Without further thought, Chojuro hurriedly followed the footsteps of Watergate and entered the restaurant. Life. As soon as Chojuro entered the door, he saw a man lighting a cigarette, sighing about life while enjoying the massage of the cold and beautiful woman behind him. These two people are Juquan and Xiaonan. For this kind of thing of massage, Xiaonan originally refused, but if he didn't do it, Juquan threatened to open his eyes. In desperation, Xiaonan could only stretch out his slender jade hand and massage Juquan's shoulder. This is. As soon as Watergate came in, he saw one more person and asked subconsciously. This is my newly recruited assistant, free of charge. Juquan introduced as usual, adding an accent to the word, free. Hearing that he was free again, Xiaonan pinched Juquan fiercely, but it had no effect. So it is. Watergate nodded, said hello simply, and then continued to introduce. This is Chojuro of Mist Yin, who came to ask you for help. Quote. Oh, tell me about it. Quote. When Juquan heard that there was business coming to his door, he immediately became interested and motioned for Nagashiro to explain. This matter is very complicated, and we have to start with the succession of our Lord Mizukage. Chojuro held up his eyes, ready to explain in detail. Please explain inside the second cross, thank you. Koizumi waved his hand, stopping Chojuro from about to start his tirade. Lord Mizukage succeeded to the throne, and Mist Yin is in a state of civil unrest, so Lord Mizukage asked Lord Juquan for assistance by name. Changjuro was stunned, and then said simply, no problem, 10 million taels, pay half of the deposit first. Juquan pondered for a while, felt a little interested, so he made an offer. This, Lord Juquan, isn't this price? When Chojuro went out, Terumi gave him 3 million as a reward for the mission. He thought that he had enough money, but he didn't expect that he couldn't even pay the deposit. In this way, if Juquan can make a move, it will also be good for Konoha, so Konoha will help bear half of the task honorarium. How about this? Watergate saw Nagajiro's embarrassment and took the initiative to relieve the encirclement. Thank you Naruto-sama, Konoha's sincerity, I will definitely repay Mizukage-sama truthfully. Chojuro saluted, very grateful. You're welcome. Shuaman responded with a smile, as if he had already prepared, and took out 5 million taels and handed them to Juquan. Then it's a deal, Xiaonan, ready to go. Juquan took the money and smiled. Lord Juquan, is this going to go? Don't you need to prepare anything? Chojuro was pleasantly surprised that the earlier he set off, the better it would be for Mist. There's nothing to prepare, let's go. Juquan answered, put on a black robe and set off. Xiaonan followed behind, and when everyone was not paying attention, contacted Pain to explain the situation. Ah Fei has already rushed over, just to help you confirm the news of the defection, so that when you meet the people of the organization in the future, you will not show your stuffing. Pain on the other end said. I see. Xiaonan looked at Juquan, who had already walked away, dissolved the contact technique, and quickened his pace to catch up. At the same time, in a dark room, a shinobi wearing a mist forehead crushed a teacup in his hand. It's really unforgivable that Terumi actually wants to invite people from other villages to deal with us. A Shangrin next to him said equally angrily. HMPH, Terumi is just a young man with some strength, and he actually wants to deprive us of our power, it's just a dream. But I heard that the person invited by Terumi is very strong, and a lot of major events have happened recently, and it seems that they are all related to this person. Hehe, it's just rumors, if this person is really so strong, Konoha would have started a war a long time ago. The leader of the Mist Yin Shangnin sneered, and then continued, don't worry, I have arranged 5 upper shinobi, and 10 middle shinobi rushed over, as long as they come out of the land of fire, haha. The 3 of Juquan rushed overnight, and in the territory of the fire country, the road was unimpeded. But when you get to the edge of the Fire Nation, the atmosphere gradually becomes weird. It suddenly rained in the sky, and the already white sky slowly changed and became dark again. I don't know when it started, and the rain gradually dripped. At first, the rain was very thin, but soon it began to become more and more dense, and the rainwater collected on the ground, forming water trails. Looks like someone doesn't want us to go to the fog. Sensing the murderous intention hidden in the rain, Juquan smiled slightly, but his expression did not care. Lord Juquan, did you say that there was an ambush? Chojuro originally felt that the atmosphere was a little strange, but when Juquan said this, he was able to confirm his own thoughts. To say it, Juquan's mission is nothing more than to help Wuyin end the civil unrest. If anyone wants to stop it, 9 times out of 10, it's the group of ninjas. At this time, a puddle of water on the ground suddenly fluctuated irregularly. Immediately afterwards, a ninja jumped out from behind Koizumi and also launched ninjutsu. Water Dragon Bullet Technique. A large amount of chakra poured into the water, forming a dragon in the form of a dragon water, which struck fiercely from behind the 9 springs. Lord Juquan, be careful. When Chojuro discovered the enemy attack, he hurriedly reminded him, but found that Juquan did not know when, and had disappeared. What about people? Quote. The sneak ninja saw that the target disappeared, his expression was startled, and he immediately looked around. Are you looking for me? The sudden sound behind him made this sneak ninja even more shocked. He immediately took out a kunai and subconsciously stabbed back, but only heard a click sound, and no longer conscious. Seeing that this sneak attack ninja had already twisted his neck, Chojuro immediately examined the corpse and said with an ugly expression, it's bad. It is the ninja of the real power faction of our mist hidden village, and it seems that they already know our whereabouts. Quote. Oh, let me see how many trash fish came. Quote. Juquan opened the domineering look with interest, perceived a circle, and said with a smile, 5 upper ninja, 9 lower ninja, a total of 14 miscellaneous fish ambushed in the woods in front. Quote. Facing these ninjas, Xiaonan felt that it didn't matter. But to Chengjiro's ears, it was not good, and he said anxiously, Lord Juquan, are we going to run away now? Quote. Why run? Juquan asked rhetorically. There are 14 more people on the other side. Although you are powerful, you can also be consumed to death by engaging in human sea tactics on the other side. Quote. Seeing Juquan's uncaring look, Chojuro explained with an excited expression. In Nagajiro's opinion, Koizumi can easily solve a Naka ninja, which is enough to prove that he is strong. But there were still 14 people on the other side, and 5 of them were still upper shinobi, and the remaining 9 were all of the middle shinobi level. This kind of lineup together, even against the last shadow level powerhouse, it is already evenly matched. It's rare and strange, it seems that you still don't know anything about power. Juquan pouted, replied a little speechlessly, and then walked to the woods and took a deep breath. Fire escape how fireball technique. Quote. A huge fireball with a diameter of 100 meters suddenly appeared, filled with countless tyrannical chakras, flying towards the woods with terrifying power. Liar, lie to people. Quote. Seeing this huge fireball, Mist Shinobu in the wood swallowed his spit and said intermittently. Originally, they were still a little surprised that Juquan instantly solved a middle ninja, but seeing this scene, all surprise turned into shock. A fireball with a diameter of hundreds of meters, you tell me this is sea-level ninjutsu, how fireball technique? Everyone used the water at once. Captain Mist Ninja looked at the approaching fireball, recovered from the shock, and ordered immediately. Water array, the art of the great waterfall. The remaining Mist Shinobi woke up one after another, casting different water ninjutsu to resist. Due to the rain, the power of the water can be fully exerted, and a large amount of water is poured on the fireball like a waterfall. The huge fireball made a sizzling sound, suddenly shrunk a lot, and then crashed straight into the huge water wall composed of water array walls. How fireball really deserves to be called zero-killing ninjutsu, such a large range of fire, actually not a single person killed. Juquan stood and watched from afar, and said with a sigh in his mouth. On the Earth in the previous life, according to the statistics of relevant personnel, the fire escape how fireball technique was a ninjutsu with a very high appearance rate in Hokage. However, until the end of Hokage, the fatality rate of this ninjutsu remained at the 0 position. It's so strong, could it be that the how fireball technique I've seen before is fake? Chojuro muttered. From the moment the fireball appeared, he maintained a stunned expression until the fireball was extinguished and gradually came to his senses. No wonder Lord Shui Ying asked Lord Juquan to help by name, it seems that there is hope that the end of civil strife is expected. At this moment, the 14 Misty Ninja also walked out, although they didn't know why they were exposed, but they simply stopped hiding. Nikai, Lord Juquan was invited by Lord Mizukage, you attacked halfway, is this to rebel? Chojuro pointed to the Captain Mist Ninja who came out and reprimanded in disbelief. He never expected that the ninja who came to attack was actually a senior shinobi of Mist Yin. It's just a young man, that's when you admit that she is Water Shadow. Nikai sneered disdainfully, and then looked at Juquan with a solemn expression. Based on his years of experience, if he used conventional methods to fight against 9 springs, the mission would definitely fail. Then you can only try the fog concealment technique. Ninfa, mist hidden art. After making a battle plan, Nikai took the lead in launching ninjutsu and gave a look to his teammate next to him. The air was suddenly filled with a thick fog, and everyone's vision was gradually blocked by the thick fog, and nothing could be seen. 8 places: throat, spine, lung, liver, carotid and subclavian arteries, kidneys and heart. Do you want me to attack that point? Ha ha. Finger gun. Before the ninja finished laughing, Juquan had already pierced his heart with a finger, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Next, let you see what is the real silent killing technique. Quote. Everyone go together, quick victory. Nikai knew that another teammate had been killed, and shouted angrily, but did not hear the response of other teammates, and subconsciously felt bad in his heart, and hurriedly lifted the fog concealment technique. The dense fog began to disperse, but the scene in front of him made Nikai creepy up. I saw that all the mist shinobi fell to the ground, and at the heart of each mist shinobi, there was a blood hole the size of a finger, and blood was still bubbling out. How could it be? When the hell is it? Nikai muttered, a little afraid to accept reality. After all, This is a dozen experienced Misty ninjas, who were actually killed without making a sound, and they were killed by one blow. Don't think about it, when you give the order, all your teammates have already been solved by me. The voice of Juquan suddenly sounded behind him, which made Nakai startled. How familiar this scene was, just like the Naka Nin who started the sneak attack. Now it's your turn. 8 places: throat, spine, lung, liver, carotid and subclavian arteries, kidneys and heart. Do you want me to attack that point? Quote. Juquan stretched out his finger, which was still dripping blood, and pointed at the back of Nakai's head. I want you to go to hell with me. Quote. Nakai knew that he could not escape, and that he would definitely die, so he lunged forward and bought 2 seconds of free time. After hastily mobilizing all the chakras, Nakai recklessly turned around and sent out the last ninjutsu of his life. Water Dragon Technique. A water dragon more than 10 meters thick, containing all the chakras of an elite shinobi, came towards the 9 springs paving. However, this water dragon seemed too slow to Juquan, so he stretched out his foot and kicked forward unhurriedly. Arashi Foot. A powerful and sharp wave of chi shot out from the foot, instantly cutting the water dragon in half and passing through Nakai's body. As soon as Nakai was there, he never moved again. Well, that's awesome. Lord Juquan, is he dead? Quote. Seeing this scene, Chojuro asked dumbfounded. Snap. Koizumi snapped his fingers. Nakai's body. The body split in response from the middle, and finally evenly split into 2 halves and fell on both sides, and the internal organs and intestines were mixed with blood and spilled on the ground. It seems to be dead. Snap. Very wonderful killing methods, both speed and skill are first class. Above Nakai's body, an arm suddenly appeared, followed by shoulders, head, torso, and legs all slowly appeared. The visitor wore a red cloud robe on a black background and a spiral mask on his face. This person is not Uchiha who disguises himself as Fei, but is it actually Uchiha's Obito? Juquan raised his eyebrows, wanting to see what kind of routine Fei was playing when he appeared in front of Xiaonan. Forgot to introduce myself, my name is Fei, to deal with a traitor. Fei said in an exaggerated tone. What kind of riot is this? Juquan was a little surprised, and pointed at Xiaonan, who was also wearing a Xiao robe, and said, the traitor you said won't be Xiaonan, right? Quote. It is she who dares to betray the organization, and I will deal with her on behalf of God's will. Fei paused, but said in a very holy tone, looking unusual. It turned out to be acting in a bitter meat drama. Juquan thought about it, and suddenly realized. After such a show, even if Xiaonan implemented the name of a traitor to the Xiao organization, not only would it be much easier to act in the future, but he would not have to worry about being suspected of identity. If Juquan hadn't known the plot of the original work, he might have really been fooled. But since everyone is lovingly performing, it is better to cooperate a little. Want to play tricks with me? I'm afraid that you will lose your wife and break the army. Juquan looked at Fei with a strange expression, and then took the opportunity to put his arm around Xiaonan and said with a smile, in front of me, the person who snatched me, do you not exist when I am? Quote. You let me go. Xiaonan began to struggle because Juquan's hand was on her small buttocks, and she rubbed it from time to time. It's a pity that with her strength, it is impossible to struggle away. It didn't take long for Xiaonan to stop moving. From Fei's perspective, he could only see Juquan hugging Xiaonan and protecting him, but this was exactly what he wanted to see. Because this is enough to show that Xiaonan has gained a certain amount of trust by Juquan's side, otherwise Juquan would not protect her. Despite this, Fei decided to make a full set of dramas, and spoke, if you dare to disobey God's will, are you not afraid of being punished by heaven? Quote. Want to kill me? My life is up to me, not to the sky. Quote. Juquan kneaded Xiaonan's elastic little buttocks while releasing the overlord-colored domineering. An extremely aggressive and suffocating momentum instantly spread out with the 9 springs as the center, and its intensity was as rich as substance, and even the surrounding land was cracked. This momentum, Xiaonan was shocked, and for a while he couldn't care about the hand that was raging on his little buttocks. This was the first time Xiaonan felt such a terrifying momentum, and looking at the familiar and unfamiliar Juquan beside her, she suddenly felt as if she was standing next to a flood beast. Needless to say, although he has the strength of Shangnan, he is not mentally strong enough, and he fainted the moment Juquan released his domineering energy. This momentum can even affect himself. Ah Fei glanced at Juquan with a solemn expression. The air was as silent as death, and then suddenly laughed. Don't release such a terrifying momentum. I don't want to fight you, but there is a guy in our organization who calls himself a god. You have to be careful. Quote. Thanks for the reminder. Juquan withdrew his overlord-colored domineering, kicked Chengjuro awake by the way, and continued to move forward with his arms around Xiaonan. When passing by Ah Fei's side, Juquan laughed softly in a voice that only two people could hear. I have the opportunity to invite you to dinner, bring soil. Quote. Ah Fei's expression was shocked after hearing this, and he wanted to take Juquan down, but considering something, he still held back. After Juquan left, a pitcher plant grew under Ah Fei's feet, and after the two leaves on his head were separated, a half-black and half-white human face was revealed. It is the intelligence officers of the Shao organization, absolutely. How? He glanced at the direction Juquan left and asked after determining that the target was far away. I'm not an ordinary person based on momentum alone. As for the specific strength, I haven't tried. I can't expose myself. Go back and call Pain to try it. Quote. Ah Fei changed his previous comic temperament and said with a solemn expression. Understood. Is there anything else? Zhe asked. When this person left, he called out my original name, and he seemed to know my identity. Ah Fei was a little worried, and the smile on Juquan's face when he left really made him sleepless. It's useless to think so much now. It's a big deal if you don't admit it when you die. I'll go inform Pain. Goodbye. Jiqi shrugged his shoulders and re-hid back into the soil. Ah Fei suddenly felt a little headache. Originally everything was under control, but he didn't expect such an out-of-control existence. 9 Springs. Lord Juquan, what happened just now? Why did I suddenly faint? Quote. Halfway through, Chojuro asked puzzled. Children don't ask so much. Hurry up and lead the way. Juquan pointed forward and ordered very casually. Yes. Chojuro saluted and walked to the front very seriously to lead the way. The three of them continued to rush after one and two after each other, seemingly normal. Your hand still won't let go. Xiaonan snorted coldly, twisting his little buttocks constantly, trying to shake the hand above him. What hands? Juquan curled the corners of his mouth and smiled, as if he didn't know anything, but the strength of his fingers was even greater, firmly fixing his small buttocks. You guy, Xiaonan said angrily, a hint of blush on his face. However, it was hard to whitewash his identity, and Xiaonan couldn't turn his face with Juquan, otherwise everything he had performed before would be meaningless. What's wrong with me? Juquan asked with an innocent look, but his fingers became even more rampant. Again, here it is again. Xiaonan clenched her teeth and twisted her posture uneasily, silently fighting against the hand that was invading her. But that hand suddenly penetrated Xiaonan's clothes and continued to invade more ruthlessly. You don't go too far. Quote. Xiaonan almost couldn't help but scream out, his body tensed fiercely. Excessive, is that so? Quote. Juquan's smile grew stronger, and after a pause, he moved even harder, and from time to time he would use a trace of the nature of the thunder attribute. Xiaonan only felt a humiliating feeling of happiness rushing straight to her brain, her head was dizzy, her thinking was gradually dull, and her body. The body leaned weakly on Juquan. No, please, stop it. Xiaonan was about to cry, and pleaded intermittently, and for the first time there was a big change in expression on her cold face. But a dignified plea will lead to an even more violent invasion. Acting in front of me, there is always a price. Juquan smiled with kindness, and began to move further. With the last fig leaf removed, Xiaonan was powerless to resist, and could only lean on Juquan's shoulder, trying to suppress the urge to take a big breath. Then a chuckle sounded in his ears, and the low and magnetic voice made Xiaonan a little confused. Wrong. This man is playing with himself. Even if he is magnetic, he should feel obscene. Are you peeing? Juquan showed his raging hand and laughed viciously. Such words are undoubtedly stimulating Xiaonan's shame. The pubic nerves, which made her neck as white as jade, were exuding a shy blush. Don't talk nonsense. You think everyone is like. Xiaonan subconsciously refuted, just wanted to say Tsunade, but she thought about it, didn't this expose eavesdropping? Like who? The corners of Juquan's mouth turned up, and he asked without giving time to think. You think everyone is as obscene as you? Without the hand raging below, Xiaonan breathed a sigh of relief, his mind gradually cleared, and he reacted quickly. But in the same way, without that raging hand, Xiaonan suddenly felt that he was not up and down, and he was very uncomfortable. Indecent, what are you talking about? I don't understand at all. Quote. Juquan smiled maliciously, but his hand invaded the forbidden place again, and his movements accelerated frequently, mixed with strong currents from time to time. You, don't. Xiaonan suddenly tensed his shoulders and leaned over. The body trembled and completely softened. It's over. It's all finally over. You can let me go. Xiaonan had tears in the corners of her eyes, and she wanted to put her clothes in order, but she was held by that hand, so that she could not succeed. A voice suddenly sounded in her ears that made her feel like a demon. Don't worry, we still have time to go all the way. 3 days later, several people finally arrived outside the mist-hidden village in the land of water. Phew, looking at the Wuyin village in front of him, Xiaonan finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the past 3 days, she has endured the bullying of this bad guy every moment. Although Juquan did not make further moves, it was still within the range that Xiaonan could barely accept. But if it took longer, she expected she would collapse too. And now, the nightmare is finally over. Under the leadership of Chojuro, Juquan and Xiaonan entered the village of Wuyin without any obstacles. All the way to the Water Shadow office, I met the task client, Terumi. Turquoise eyes, long brown hair hanging down high, just enough to cover the right eye. Although Terumi is only in her early 20s, she already has 7 points of charm. I didn't expect that the rumored strong man was so young and handsome. Terumi said with a smile on her face, showing maturity and femininity. Flatter. Even if you praise me so much, the task remuneration will not be discounted. Juquan replied jokingly, but did not take these praises to heart. Presumably you also know about our foggy situation, so how do you want to solve it? Terumi ruffled her hair and asked with a wink. It's simple, bring together those who oppose you and solve it together. Juquan thought about it and said the easiest way. This is not okay, it is too easy to leave evidence. Mizukage and the people of the outer village slaughter the ninja of the village. Once it is spread, it will cause a lot of trouble in the future. Terumi pouted and thought about it, then shook her head repeatedly. After listening to it, Juquan looked like he knew such a thing, and said with a smile, the second method, you give me a list and map, and I will deal with it one by one. Quote. That's a good idea, just do it. Terumi's eyes lit up when she heard this, and she nodded in agreement. But the task has become troublesome, and you are not paid enough. Juquan calculated the time spent and reminded. How about adding 50% more to you? Zhao Mei stretched out her white jade hand and said with a smile. Then it's a deal. Juquan also stretched out his hand, representing the deal. Terumi personally arranged for Juquan to rest first and return to the Water Shadow office. Chojuro, what is the reward for the mission that asked Koizumi to make a move this time? Terumi sat on the chair and asked while leisurely drinking tea. Lord Shui Ying, it's a total of 10 million taels. Chojuro bowed his head and reported. Oh, it's only 10 million taels, burst. Terumi squirted out the tea in her mouth, wiped her mouth and exclaimed, 10 million taels. Did you over-report a zero? Quote. Lord Mizukage, it is indeed 10 million taels, and the Hokage of Konoha has already helped pay the deposit of 5 million taels. So Chojuro told everything about the original version of the matter. So, I just agreed to add 50% of the honorarium, which is equivalent to a direct loss of 5 million taels. Why didn't you remind me? Quote. Terumi rubbed her hair and said with some distress. She originally thought that 3 million taels was enough to hire Juquan. After all, it was already equivalent to the remuneration of 3 S-class tasks. Even if you add a 50% remuneration, it will only add 1.5 million taels at most, but I didn't expect Juquan to charge so expensive. Due to the particularity of the task, Terumi did not dare to use the funds of the village, otherwise it would be too easy to leave evidence. This money can only be paid by her own pocket. Lord Mizukage, I wanted to remind you, but you promised too quickly to say. Chojuro replied with some grievances, this black pot, he was not ready to carry it. forget it, quickly list the list and address of those real powers, and then send it to him. I really hope that they can lose both, and I can pay the bill. Terumi waved his hand helplessly and said, then turned to a middle-aged ninja in the corner and asked, Ching, can you sense his strength? Is there hope that both sides will lose? Quote. The ninja called Ching is famous for his perception ability, and with the white eyes captured on the battlefield, it can be said that his perception ability is one of the best in the fog. Lord Mizukage, I'm afraid your idea can't be realized. According to my perception, this person not only has a chakra that surpasses the tailed beast, but also has another power that makes people palpitate. Hearing Zhao Meiyu's question, Qingkai came back to his senses, as if he had seen something terrifying just now, and replied with some fear. A palpitating force. I'm getting more and more interested. Quote. Terumi said curiously, then glanced at the time, stretched his waist and said, I'm off work. Off work. Sure enough, you still need to soak in the hot spring and relax. Quote. At the same time, in the VIP lounge arranged by Meiyu, Juquan sat on the sofa, and played with Xiaonan in his arms. Although Xiaonan resisted very strongly, it did not have an effect. According to Jiaomei's current financial situation, it seems that it is a little difficult to pay me the remaining 10 million taels of honorarium. Juquan lit a cigarette, and the old god said in his presence. This matter belongs to Jiaomei's private commission. She can't use the village's financial funds. Aren't you afraid that she won't be able to pay at that time? Xiaonan smiled darkly, and he seemed to see the scene of Juquan by busy in front of him. Now that a deal is made, you have to keep your promise, but, instead, I was expecting her to dare to live on my account. Quote. Juquan did not have the slightest worry, but proposed with some intention. After working for several days, do you want to go to a hot spring? Quote. No, please let me go, I just want to get a good night's sleep. Xiao Nanchao's face turned white, and he shook his head without thinking about it and refused. Now it's all like this, but if you go to the hot spring, you won't necessarily be able to do it. Whatever you want, then I'll go by myself. Half an hour later. The land of water, the water mist hot spring of the village of mist. As one of the characteristics of the country of water, the water mist hot spring has a high praise, not only the elegant environment but also the waiters inside are very beautiful women. The most important thing is that this is Shui Ying's personal industry, so Water Shadow will often patronize its own industry, which also leads to many people coming here. It's a pity that the Water Shadow clears the scene every time, and outsiders can't see this beautiful scenery at all. At this time, it is close to night, and the hot spring is no longer full of guests, and it is about to close. But outside the door, a man in a black robe came in. Guest, we're closing. A beautiful waitress came over and said apologetically, because she saw that the man was not wearing a ninja brace, and he did not dress like a civilian in the mist-hidden village, most likely a guest from other places. The hot spring ticket is 300 taels, I'll give you 30,000 taels, can you accommodate it? The person who came was Juquan. He originally wanted to relax well, who knew that it was just in time for the people to close, and the waiter still looked very polite. This is not in line with the regulations. The beautiful waitress hesitated. Although 30,000 taels is not a small amount, it is worth opening for this guest for a while, but Lord Shui Ying often comes to the hot spring at night, and if she is blamed, it is not something she can afford. Take the money, let him in. Just when the beautiful waitress was in a dilemma, the voice of Zhao Mei sounded at the door. Yes, Lord Mizukage. The beautiful waitress hurriedly saluted. Terumi, coincidentally, I didn't expect Shui Ying to come to the hot spring. Quote. Juquan saw the acquaintance and said hello. It's really a coincidence. For the sake of me helping you speak, do you want to consider giving me a discount on the task remuneration? Terumi ruffled her hair and threw a wink. Ha. Juquan smiled and did not speak. Led by the beautiful waitress, Juquan came to a hot spring pool full of garden atmosphere, and just soaked down, but found Terumi wearing a thin layer of yukata, and also followed. I have something very important to talk about, don't let people in. Terumi went down to the pool and then commanded the beautiful waitress. Yes, Lord Mizukage. The beautiful waitress took the order and slowly retreated. Seeing that this hot spring pool was completely devoid of others, Juquan stretched out and spoke, what are you important about? Quote. Like I just said, do you want to consider giving me a discount? After all, I didn't know that your honorarium was so expensive. Quote. Terumi leaned back on the edge of the pool, revealing a perfect curvy charm. Confused. The deal has been concluded, you shouldn't be trying to pay the bill, right? Juquan asked funnily while admiring the beautiful scenery. How come, was used by people for this invasion? Slightly looking at it, even if Zhao Mei was bold, he couldn't help shrinking his body into the water, and denied it again and again. That's good, if you can't pay the honorarium, the end is not good. Juquan said very seriously, and then reminded, your shang is floating. Quote. Yay. Terumi's face turned red, and she quickly pressed it down and wrapped her hands around it to stop it from floating. After soaking for a while, Juquan felt almost the same, so he got up and walked to the stage, and did yoga according to the method he had seen on TV before. With Juquan's current physique, he didn't feel pressure at all, and all kinds of difficult yoga postures were simply pinched. What kind of action is that? Is the secret of this man getting stronger? As if she had discovered a new continent, she quietly observed the movements of the 9 springs. Want to learn? I can teach you. Quote. Noticing someone's starry gaze, Juquan invited very generously. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.